What's up? Good evening, everybody. It's Matt. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of the cast for the Colorado Kayak Fishing Club podcast. Tonight, we're joined by our two champs, calling it Chat with the Champs from Pueblo, which was our this past weekend. We had a multi-species tournament there on Saturday, and we had a bass tournament there on Sunday. So let's just get started in there. I don't really have any big announcements to make, so we're just going to go ahead and get our winners in here. First, for the multi day, which was Saturday, none other than El Presidente, Alex Rojas. What's up, Alex?
Not much. How's it going, Matt? Thanks for having me.
Once president, always president.
Is that the way it works?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
All right.
I like it.
And then yeah. So thanks for joining us, Alex. Next up for the multi side, or sorry,
Bass
side of the house, Mr. James Strawbridge.
Also, El Presidente.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Yeah. Pretty good.
Getting
Pretty
everything
good.
switched up here. So
it's all good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Jim. Appreciate it. Jim, do you like to go by Jim or James?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. My wife calls me Jimmy. She's known me as Jimmy for 35 years, right? So everybody sees me on Facebook as James. So everybody calls me James. But then the people who know me call me Jim. But my wife and people who are super close to me call me Jimmy because they hang around with my wife. So whatever you call me, I go by worse sometimes too.
Right on.
Yeah, I like Jimmy
Right
Straws.
That's what I get a lot.
Flanagan has some good names. He has some great names.
He's got a knack for that for sure.
He does.
Is that what Matt calls you, Jimmy Straws?
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that is when I was in my boat days, that my tournament partner Jeff used to call me Little Jimmy Straws because I'm short, I'm not big, and he was a big dude. He used to call me Little Jimmy Straws, and it was just funny when Flanagan came up with that. I'm like, man, it just fits. So yeah, call me that too. Whatever. I mean,
right on. Well, cool. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. Yeah, so let's get right into it. First off, anybody that's in the chat right now, we are live on YouTube. If you're in the chat, allow StreamYard access so that we can see your name when you're posting. And then in addition to that, feel free, ask any questions you want in the comments, and we'll be happy to answer them here as we go. But let's get right into it. Saturday was multi. So, Alex, that was your day, right? So
yeah,
I want to look at some stats first, and then we'll get right into how you did. So I've got TourneyX popped up here. I'll present my screen and
so Matt, share what multi is and what species we were targeting at this lake.
Yeah. So let me make sure I got the right one. Can't really see. Is that yeah? That's multi. So so we've got here multi-species. So the way this one went, it's different at each. Actually, I'll just stop sharing this for a second. But so the way that multi works is each tournament's a little bit different. CKFC, Colorado Kayak Fishing Club, they've got two trails really. They've got a bass trail, which you see a lot of places, and then they have a multi-species trail. Kind of unique to Colorado, we get to fish some species that you wouldn't really be able to fish in other states. I think that's one of the strengths of CKFC is that no matter what you like to fish for, or even if you're just getting started out, you can catch fish in these tournaments in a lot of different species. So the multi-species for this tournament at Pueblo was 3 walleye, 2 bass, and then 1 trout or crappie. So that was what it was, a 6 fish total. And then I'll go ahead and share this screen here. So at the top, I want to highlight the top 3. We'll do that again for bass later. But we've got Alex Rojas, 102 inches. We had that 22-inch walleye here, which is awesome. 22 and a quarter. Jason Duong, you're going to see him again, 99 and a half inches. And then Jeremy Pierce, the tournament director for bass, actually, coming in at 97 and a quarter. So great job to those guys. As you'll see, the people behind them, not too far behind. 96 3/4 with Paul Roth there. Excuse me. But Alex, how'd you do it, buddy?
So I went. My birthday was Monday before the tournament, so I went down to lake, pre-fished on Monday, took the day off, had a blast. I mean, all the fish are biting, as you guys know. Like everything was biting. Crappie are biting, walleye are biting, trout are biting, bass are biting, largemouth, smallmouth, spots. So I went out down there and had fun. But my main focus that day was to do two things. One, to see if bass were on beds, right, which they were. And then two, just to find if the walleye are where I expected them to be. So I got out there, and yeah, right away they were right where I thought they were going to be. There's a couple, 4 or 5 areas down at South Marina that I usually fish, and they were stacked up in all those places. So I knew it was going to be a pretty good bite. What I found out that day though was trolling for them was going to be a little trickier. They weren't really biting the trolling, but they weren't biting like flicker shads or trolling baits. They really weren't, at least for me. So what I love doing, everybody knows what I love doing, man. I got that jerk bait in my hand, game over. I caught everything on a jerk bait. So tournament day rolls around, and I just go out there and just start fishing. Like I go straight to the dam. I'll tell you my whole plan. I'll tell everybody exactly where I go because I don't care. You can fish right next to me. It never bothers me. All right. So I go to the dam. I fish the dam because I know I could pick up both walleye and bass there every time. And so I went to the dam. I just had that jerk bait in my hand, and it was, I think it's my first cast. I caught a 14, 13-inch bass. I threw it back. This comes back to later, right? It's lessons again. This has happened multiple times. I never learned, right? So I caught, I think, 2 14s in that first 15 minutes or so. I just threw them back. I didn't measure them. I just put them on the board real quick, 14, threw them in the water. Like, I know I can get better than the 14s. Like, I knew I could, right?
Yeah.
That came to bite me a little bit later. It didn't really bite me, I guess, because I won, but could have bit me. So anyways, yeah, I catch 2 bass right away, 3 bass pretty quick, and then I started trying to catch the walleye, but they had moved on me just a little bit. I kept on catching more bass. Finally got 2 good ones. Good ones. I had a 15 something, and just that one good one. I take that back. So anyways, I started fishing. I found the walleye finally. They're like in a small spot. It's about 25 yards long on the dam. They're out like 12 foot to 20 foot of water out deeper. And I'm watching them on live scope, which is okay. If you hate live scope, don't listen to this because that's how I caught them. Right? Is I saw them on live scope stacked up, and you could tell the difference between a bass and a walleye, how they stack up. They just stack up differently. So I knew those were walleye compared to the bass I was catching. And so I just started casting to them, and I was just, doing my jerk, pause. And I could see them coming up from 20 foot of water. They were coming all the way up, nose up to the bait. And I just started playing with them and then smashed to get it, hook up. My first walleye I caught was I believe it was a 22 1/4. So I was like, oh, this is good. And there's a lot of good ones in there. So I knew, but just based off the size and the live scope. So I knew it was going to be a pretty good day. So I caught that one pretty quick. And then I caught like 15. I didn't measure that one. I just threw it back. Part of my reasoning for that too is that I go in with a plan for multi-species. And Jim, I don't know if you do this either, and Matt for that matter. Anytime I fish any tournament, anywhere I go, bass or multi, doesn't matter, is I know what it's going to take to kind of be at the top for most lakes.
Yeah.
And so for multi, I know walleyes, you have to have an average of about 18 inches minimum to be at the top. It's just pretty typical. So I knew those like 16s and 14s weren't going to help me. Like, if I come in 10th place, it doesn't, like, I don't, like, who cares, right? I'm trying to win. I'm trying to be top, 5 to get AOI points. So I was just throwing those back. And sometimes it bites me, right? Like that 13s and 14s I was throwing earlier in the day. So anyways, I got those pretty quick. I caught another one. I had that one to the boat, to the kayak. It was just as big as the one I caught before. It was about a 20, 21, 22-inch fish. Had it right to the freaking kayak. I was spinning at him. He made one last run on me and just popped off. And I was pretty upset with that one because this is another good one. And with that one, I was like, I probably would lock up the tournament already. Like, just had to get the damn trout. But anyways, I caught some 17s. And I was like, okay, I got 2 17s and a 22. My average is what? That's like almost a 19-inch average. I was like, that's good. let's go. So I went from there. I said, it's time to go fish, find the damn trout, because I knew that was going to be the tough one. So I went over to an area down by the ramp, and I started fishing for trout, and I put the tiniest little flicker shad I have. I started trolling a local flicker shad, and they were biting it, but they couldn't get it because they're so small, I think, right? And I
Yeah.
started throwing a little power switch, Matt, a little tiny power switch, like 1.75-inch power switch. I got bit on that, but I couldn't hook them up for whatever reason. I kept losing them. I was about to tie on a little hair jig. I said, let me just try again. I had a little tiny spoon, a little Castmaster, like the smallest Castmaster they make. I tied that on, threw that behind me, and I had the flicker shad on the other side. I hooked up, and I lost one, like a pretty decent one. I was like,
Oh.
no! It just started like flopping around, and I lost right away. So I kept trolling. I finally picked up an 11.75 and put him in the kayak. And I tried to grab the little freaking slimy bastard. I put him on the board. He's just slipping out of my hand, flopping over the board. I'm just trying to keep him in the kayak because he's trying to flop out. He goes underneath my seat. I can't grab him. He's just slipping out of my hand. He's in there for a good, no lie. He's in there for 4 minutes, probably 3-4 minutes. So I'm like, this guy's dead.
I was gonna say he's dead.
He's they die so easy, and I hate it. But I hate fishing for trout. But so I'm just sitting there trying to get him. So I'm like, I couldn't grab him. So I reached around and I pulled out of my my crate. I got my gloves, my fishing gloves, just to have something to grab him with. I wet them real quick, and I was able to finally grab him. And I put him on the board. Took the pictures, 11.25. I put him down. He floated right away. I tried to revive him for about 3-4 minutes. He kind of swam off. I wished him luck. And I went fishing. That was it, right? I said, good luck, buddy. Hope you make it. Sorry. And I hate doing that. It sucks. It's part of the game, I guess. But if you put trout on there, that's what's going to happen, unfortunately, right?
That's right.
So I got the 11.25. So at that point, I just needed one more bass. So I knew I had a 16.75 on a bed that I knew where it was, and I marked it. So I said, let me go catch that one real quick. I went over there. Wasn't there. And when I got there, the wind had kicked up, and I couldn't see the beds anymore. Right? I had them all marked. I had marks for all of them, but I couldn't see them anymore. It was all that, it's like that mud line had developed all along there. And I was like, uh-oh. So I just started flipping all the brush I could flip, right? And I kept on getting 10-incher, 11-incher, 12-incher. And so I said, what am I going to do? Like, I got to do something here. So I said, let's move to another spot. So I went to Pedro's Cove. On my way there, I fished the walleye flats. Picked up another walleye. It's a 17.25, so I got a 1/4-inch upgrade there. And then I was like, okay, let's just try to go get another bass. I finally picked up a 13.25 or 13.75. So I got that bass. I measured that one finally. It's getting later in the day. I was getting kind of worried. I ended up with that fish being my smallest fish of the day. So those 14s I threw back could have bit me. So then I started fishing for. I was like, let me try to get another big walleye down in Pedro's. So I started throwing jerkbait. Everything was jerkbait, everything, right? So I started throwing another jerkbait again, trying to get a walleye. I hook up, and it starts jumping and doing the thing that trout do, right? And it jumped like 17 times. It was going bananas. I let my drag off a little bit. I was trying to keep him in the water, so it wouldn't be so close to jump out of the water. I was trying to get him deeper. So I let my drag out, let him run. And he starts running, and I can't control him because my drag's too loose. And he takes a run behind my kayak. He goes all the way around my kayak, and I have all my rods behind me, like 9 rods, right? And I'm like, oh no! So I have to pull my rod all the way up above all the other rods, trying to keep tension at the same time on the rod. I switch hands, it's just a cluster. It's a mess, and I know it's a good one. It's way bigger than the 11-inch one, right? This could be like the win for me right here. Like this is big, and this is the last hour of the day. It was at 12:50 when I caught him, and so I bring him around. He goes to the front of the kayak. I thought he was gonna go all the way around. He turns. And I said, all right, it's time to tighten up the drag a little bit. And I brought him back in. I netted him. At that point, I was just like, oh, thank you. Had my gloves on to make sure I could grab him. Put the death grip on him, put him on the board, got those pictures taken. It was a 16.25, I think, or 16.75. So I got like a 5.5-inch upgrade. That put me at 102. And I knew at that point 102 was probably going to be top 3.
Excuse me.
I was still worried that somebody could catch me because anybody could catch a big trout, and I knew it'd come down to trout. whoever caught the biggest trout would probably win. Because everybody's going to catch 17, 18-inch walleye. Everybody's going to catch 15-inch bass, you know. So I knew that the trout was the key. It always is, unfortunately. But yeah, I got that guy in the boat, and I was so happy. And at that point, I was like, pretty much just whatever. So let me go try to pick up a bass, but it's pretty windy at that point. And I just went back and fished a little bit for bass, but I called it early, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes before it was over. I went to the shore and said, I'm done. If they catch me, they catch me. But that was my day. I mean, it was all on jerkbait, all on a mega bass. Was it the 110 Junior Plus?
+1.
Tennessee shad, which has like a gold top with like a whitish bottom. All of them, every single fish came on it. Every single. I threw like a bone color one because white usually does pretty well out there. I did a natural color one. I didn't get as much love on those. It all came on that mega bass one. This is my first time really throwing a mega bass. Monday was the first time I threw a mega bass when I was like, I'm not paying that much for that lure. I just
Well, you won a tournament, so now you're gonna go in debt on Vision 110.
Yeah, because I'm a big fan of the KVD jerkbaits. I really am. Like I really like the KVD jerkbaits.
Same here.
You know, and I bought all of them. You know, I've had Provokes. I have all kinds of different ones I bought through the years. And I just love the KVD ones for whatever reason. They work well. I have confidence with them. Maybe that's probably more of you know, it is. Your confidence in the bait's probably more important than anything else, right? But that mega bass, it slashes and darts pretty nice. The only thing I don't like about it is the hooks. They're pretty thin. They bend pretty easily. So
they bend really
one of the walleye I caught, I bent the crap out of 2 of the hooks. And I didn't want to switch out the hooks because it changes the balance point of the hook.
Yep.
And so I haven't played with like what hooks that work for it to replace them. And all I have is these bigger hooks. I didn't want to do that to mess up, you know, if the head's going to go lower, the tail's going to go lower. So I don't want to mess up the balance. So I'm just going to keep it the way it is. I bent them back as best I could. And I was like, well, there's a bunch of hooks on there, so hopefully don't get those, you know. And it ended up working out pretty well. So.
Yeah, that's how you test the drag. Those mega bass will help you test the drag. I mean, you got to set it loose, and you know, if you get around wood when you're in that jerk bait, then you got a problem. Like, I can't let it too loose. He's going to run in that wood. If I get it too tight, he's going to straighten out the hook. So
yeah. So that's kind of worried about those hooks a little bit because they're so thin and small on top of that, you know. But
they're really sticky hooks. Like they'll set pretty well. Like they are a super light wire, but they will bend out. That's a good point, Jim.
I don't know if you've noticed it or not, and I just noticed this last week, and I was talking to Trev about it and Josh Gardner, who are, you know, big mega bass guys. They know their stuff about that product and that JDM stuff. I looked at one of my jerk baits when we were up at Horsetooth, and the barb was on the outside of the hook. And I thought, oh, that's a collector's item. That's a mistake. So I went over to Trev and I'm like, have you ever seen this? And he's like, no. And he looked at one of his jerk baits. Some of them had it and some of them didn't. And then Josh Gardner's like, yeah. And I don't hold me to this. I think he said it's the Mega Bass 110 +1. It's a certain bait that is meant to be swiped at, or they think it's a swipe type of a bait. So they put the barbs on the outside of the hooks. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
That's cool. Crazy. Well, you know, traditionally with jerk baits, I mean, how many times do you hook a fish that's not in the mouth?
Right.
You get them in the spine, in the back, and the eye. I mean, everywhere because they go for it, and you're jerking it or moving it.
Yep.
And they hit it wrong, or they hit it and they come off the first hook. And the back hook gets them or something, you know.
Yep.
I mean, it's just that's part of the game with a jerk bait, you know.
Yeah. Those hooks also have they've got like a little spiral to them, so they're not just like your standard treble hooks that are just 3 out. If you look at them, they're kind of spiraled for the way that they come off. Each one's spiraled out, and it's just different.
Well, mine are extra spiraled now because I bent the crap out of them.
All right, cool. We got some people in the comments here. Jason, what's up, brother? Jason Duong, second.
So real quick with Jason, man, I say poor Jason, but he made more money than me or James made. Yeah. He made more money than me or James this weekend by winning a tournament because he got 2 seconds in a row, you know. But I know he'd rather have the trophy and the win more than the money. Jason's like me, so I know, right? But yeah, he had a hell of a weekend though. Holy crap, he had a great weekend.
Yeah. Wow.
That just proves like going back to back multi and bass, being able to place second in both. We also got Joey Baker. The smallmouth were smashing pink hair jigs. I believe they were. They were smashing
What weren't they smashing?
Everything.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
weren't they smashing?
I was gonna throw
Yeah.
my watch if I ran out of baits. I was like, "Let's hit the watch because it's got a little flash on the band. I think I can get
Yeah.
him to go."
And then we got Gene.
There's
Gene, what's up?
Gene.
TPO podcast, Doc Talk. That's our buddy Gene over there. What's up, brother? Yeah. So Alex, you talked about your strategy a little bit.
Yeah. So let me.
20 you talked about trolling because typically we'll see people out, and I want to go through the leaderboard just quickly here because I don't want to take all night going over this one, but we had eight limits that were actually filled for the tournament here, out of almost 50. So out of 47 anglers, 8 people caught a limit. And then that was 90 inches at 8th place, and then it dropped down to 77 and kept dropping after that. So I tried the trolling bite because I'm still pretty new to tournament fishing. This is my 3rd year. And the multi stuff, it's tough. I spent my time free fishing for bass, and I thought, hey, I'll just troll around and catch everything else. That bit me in the butt. So is
Yeah, I'll
there
say
a
this,
reason in your mind that you think the trolling bite didn't work? Because it tends to usually work.
Yeah, so
At
this
least
time of year
for
is
like
weird.
one.
This time of year, I don't know. It's tough because normally it should work, but a lot of times this time of year they tend to start sticking closer to the bottom. Like I said, most of my fish that I were catching, I could see them coming up from the bottom, like 20 foot of water. 12 to 20 is where my zone was for the walleye, and they're coming up from way down there, and they're coming all the way up to my jerkbait. You know, and then they nose up to it, and so many of them would swim away, like so many of them, right? I'd work it, it starts, so they nose up to it, I'd work it, they start swimming away, I give them some hard pops, like really hard pop, and they turn to come back to it, nose up to it. So whenever they started getting like losing their attention, I would just give them a super hard pop, and they'd come and just stream back at it, sometimes bite it. Why? I don't know, Matt. So I don't know how many people did like Lindy rigging or a slow death rig down at the bottom, but you have to be touching bottom. This time of year, a lot of times, especially in June more so, I see it more in June than I do in May, so it's kind of weird. In June, they're really on the bottom a lot more, seems like. And you got to like drag the bottom and like, I mean, stir things up on the bottom on purpose, like get that bottom bouncer popping on the bottom just to create a little mud. Like it stirs up the bottom a little bit and they come investigate. I don't know why. I don't know why it wasn't there, but I knew everybody's going to struggle. I knew that right away. People are going to struggle because everybody likes to troll for them, you know. And I knew I kind of had that little bit of advantage because I know most people, if you look at the limits that people didn't get, they were missing those walleye. Most of them, they were missing the walleye. So I knew people were going to kind of struggle a little bit with it. That's why that jerkbait is very powerful. And like Josh Unger tells me all the time, he's like, "But that's still seasonal." I'm like, "No, a jerkbait is not seasonal, man. I throw a jerkbait year round in wintertime, summer. I mean, spring, fall, and in winter is probably the best time. But I catch them in the summer just as well on a jerkbait. You know, you gotta play with them and work it. You know. The longer the cast, the better because they follow it so often. Like you do short casts, they just every time you move it and it pauses, they nose up to it. And they'll start swimming off and they come back and start swimming off and they come back until they finally commit. Very rarely do you see them just come up and smash it just right away. I've learned that with live scope. You just don't see it. They just don't come and smash it just for the hell of it. They come and look at it. Even smallies, they come and just look at it for a minute before they eat it. So the longer the cast, the more time you have to get them to commit. I don't know why though, Matt. I don't know what the answer is. The one thing I didn't throw for them, which I think may have worked, 2 things I think would have worked too, would have been a swim bait. Slow rolling swim bait down low, just over the like a foot or 2 off the bottom, and then the other thing would have been a jigging a minnow, just jigging that minnow, just right on the cast it out, let it go to the bottom, pop it off, and just start working it. I did try the power switch, hopping it, hopping off the bottom, the power switch, thinking try to get a reaction bite that way. I didn't get any. Oh, I got one that way, but I only got one that way. I don't know why. It's a good question. But they were set up deeper. Since Pueblo's deeper right now, they're still in the same areas I always catch them at. Always, same exact areas.
I noticed
some were set up on grass, some were set up on rock. But they were still in the exact same areas I always catch them in. The difference is, and maybe this is a trolling problem too, is that instead of it being that 10 foot that it normally is, it was now 20 feet. Because the lake's up quite a bit. I don't know how high up it is, but it's a lot higher than what it normally is, you know. And so maybe those traditional baits that you're trolling, say you're throwing a number 5 flicker shad, it goes down like 10 feet, maybe 12 feet.
10 to
And
12.
if they're in 20 feet, you know, you're not putting it right on top of their nose, and you're not getting like a jerkbait. They're seeing that flash and something's dying. Let's come look at it. A flicker shad's not that. A flicker shad just swim right by them pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
So I think that maybe that was part of it, that it wasn't low enough in their zone, their strike zone, for them to want to eat it. You had to be right on the bottom. I think if you're trolling, you had to be right on the bottom to get them.
Yeah, I believe that, and I want to talk to James about that too when we get into bass. But you know, that's kind of one of the things that we've seen. I guess, I guess everywhere that we fished this year. I mean, at the Classic, Truman was up 12 feet.
14.
I feel like Horsetooth was kind of back to what it usually is, or closer to it. But it was way different than, or Boyd was different than it was. So, yeah, I mean, if you don't have that experience and that time on the water, I feel like it's like fishing a new lake almost sometimes. You know, or yeah, like you're saying, you know, 10 feet's now 18 feet or something like that. Fish may go to the same spots, but how you fish for them might have to change for how you get to them and present. But got a couple more comments in here. Gene, his trick to catching walleye and trout is to fish for smallmouth. Amen to that. And the pansy fish. Right on.
The pansy fish, that's great.
And we got the Flanavan in here. Hey, I'm sorry, late boys. Thanks for joining us, Matt. My roommate for Red Willow. All right, cool. All right, well, hey, let's go straight into the bass then, James. So day 2, whatever you want to talk about. What was your strategy going into it? How much time did you get pre-fishing, and what made you kind of do what you did?
Well, I knew going down based on seasonal pattern, time of year, and what the water temperatures were going to be, that it was probably going to be a spawn bite. I kind of figured that out. I went down, I think I went down Thursday, and I had a campsite, so I fished for like half a day Thursday. And Thursday, I just really just covered water. I launched the north, and I just looked around. I hardly really fished, and I was just seeing where the fish were moving in, because there was empty spots. Not every spot, how can I say this? Every spot around the lake had the smaller ones, but the bigger fish were spawning deeper in certain areas. So I just went around and I just literally covered water on Thursday. And like Alex said, I just marked a bunch of stuff that I knew could potentially help me. And then on Friday, I went south and I looked around south, and I didn't see much on the main lake as far as even spawners until I went way back at the South Marina, you know, at the South Cove. And I went way back and I saw some spawners back there. And believe it or not, Flanagan will appreciate this. I was getting them on a buzz bait, but I knew that the South was going to get a lot of attention, right? I knew people were going to be back there, and there weren't a lot of fish. So I'm like, I'm not going to play that game. So, I went back to the north and decided to go north for tournament day. But here's the kicker. There was a bass boat tournament on Saturday for bass. Yeah. So I knew that. And on Saturday, I knew I had some good fish that were deeper. So I launched Saturday. This is ridiculous that I did this, and it was the worst thing I ever did, but the best thing I ever did. I found a stretch of 50, 70 yards that had 5 of them, bink, 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 right in a row, and they were good ones. And I'm like, if these bass boaters get in here, they're going to see them. They're good sticks. They're going to box them, and I'm not going to be able to get them. I sat on those fish till 2:30 in the afternoon till that tournament was over. I literally sat there. And I just did nothing. I was just throwing stuff back. Actually, you know what I did? I played with my Panoptics. I turned my live scope, and I just started looking at Panoptics and got familiar with looking at beds and seeing fish swimming around and chasing. There was trout swimming shallow all over the place. in the North Shore Marina in 2 to 5 feet of water. So I protected all those fish on Saturday so they wouldn't get boxed. And thank God I did, because a lot of those fish were the ones that I put on the board. So
That's awesome.
I knew my strategy going in. I could catch them. I could catch them on a jig, getting them to react. I'd throw it in the bed, and that bed was deep. So I had to have fairly calm conditions to see down. They were probably 8 to 10 feet down. And I would get the jig in there, and I would just literally just tap the back of the rod and just get it to go. And they would nose down and they would look at it. And then when they'd get close, I'd snap it up. And then when it would snap up, right before it would fall, they would grab it and they would literally inhale it. Like I was reaching my hand in to get it. And it was almost, I learned that when I'd snap it up, if I didn't set again, I couldn't catch the fish, because he would literally inhale it, swim, and spit it out in a split second. So I literally had to snap and then snap again back to back to get the hook set before he could spit it. So it was like a little game I had to figure out. And then come tournament day, the water was really calm, which was to my benefit. That was 100%. There was no wind in the morning for like 3 or 4 hours. And if you look at the time on my fish, that's when I did most of my damage, and I could see them really well. Then it started getting that little bit of chop, and I lost all visibility. And at that point, I switched to a drop shot, and I was using my 2D sonar. So what I did is couldn't really see the bed with 2D because it's a cone. It's not a slice like down imaging or side imaging. It's a cone. So I could see the bottom, and it would be a flat bottom. And all of a sudden you would just see a blip on the bottom. And that's the fish hovered off the bed a little bit. And I really turned my settings down, which is opposite of what people would think. You'd think, hey, you want to crank that settings up or the sensitivity up on that graph so you could make those fish pop. It was actually opposite. When you crank sensitivity up on a graph, you pick up all that debris, microscopic organisms, and everything in the water column, and it takes that white screen and it just gives you a bunch of information that's completely useless to you. So I went the opposite. And on my Hummingbird, it goes 10 is default, goes up to 20 for your maximum sensitivity, and 1 is as low as it gets. I had it set on 6. I was pretty darn low. So I was making that bottom pop, and I didn't care what was in the water column. But as those fish were elevated above the bed, I would see that little strip of white on my screen, and I knew that that was a fish suspended on a bed. That was my only clue. And I would be as... Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I would be really as quiet as I possibly could, because I knew they were right underneath the boat. And I would just drop down to them, and literally it was the first drop. I would feel tunk, and my line would swim off, and I would set it. And I was using 8-pound line with a 1/0 Gamakatsu hook, which is super, super small. So the nerve factor was definitely there, but I hooked them all and I landed. I lost 1 at the end of the day. That might have helped me, but I don't know. know.
So when you do your sonar like that, so old school walleye fishing, right?
Yeah.
Is when they have the bottom a lot, right? So to try to find them, you got to do tricks with your 2D to find them, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I used to do is use a zoom feature.
Yep.
I use a split screen.
Yep.
And I zoom. So I'm looking just at the bottom little, like the 5 feet off, just the 5 foot zone of the bottom. Do you play with that at all, or do you do that at all, or no?
I did split screen a little bit back in the day, but I've gotten so tuned in. What I'll actually do is, I have a 9-inch screen on my Hummingbird, so it's not a huge one. But the trick to getting the maximum out of the screen to get the definition is to set your depth. Don't ever have it on auto. I'm always constantly changing my depth. So if I'm in 25 feet of water, I always have that bottom at 20. I have it set for 27, 26. So that gives me the maximum amount of screen and gives me the most detail and lets that sonar penetrate down as far as it possibly can. So I don't mess with the zoom. It's a great point, and I used to mess with it. But when I really turned my sensitivity down and I zoomed, I would almost get it would get pixelated because let me, you know me with electronics, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't know anything about this computer, but I'm decent with electronics. I'm still running a Hummingbird 998. Like one of our contestants that fishes with us, Chase Patchett, right? I don't think he was even born yet, and I have this electronics, right? So I'm running such old school stuff, but I'm so tuned into that graph and how to set the settings for the 2D. I'm finding it very hard to go get a new one. Personally, I think chirp sonar distorted a picture more than the old school ones, and that's just my opinion. I feel like chirp, it's supposed to separate things more, but I feel like it's such high frequency, and the cone, the oval cone, this cone, that there's so many cones within a cone. I don't feel comfortable using it. That's why I don't use my Garmin for my 2D. That's why I run two graphs. I run my Hummingbird is for side imaging, down imaging, 2D and mapping, and my Garmin is strictly for forward facing sonar. So for all you forward facing sonar haters out there, I did not turn it on. I lie. I turned it on once. I ran into Chenchar fishing a point, and I was going to fish the tires in the South Shore, and he was kind of close to that area. So we had a conversation about where you're going, what are you doing? You going over the tires? So I put the live scope on and I scoped, and I saw some fish, but as I went down the tires, I could see down, and it was just 13, 14 inch spot that wouldn't help me. I needed to cull up a 17-inch fish. So it's tough to cull up a 17-inch fish to go ahead and look for it. So I literally ran out. I ran out of places to go in the North Shore Marina because, like I said earlier, they were only in specific spots. They weren't all over the place. So I had I had 3 spots that held fish. So and I knew that I couldn't go back and rotate on them because there was potential of duplicating a fish, and I didn't even want to play that game or be into that. So I just left. But I did most of my damage till like 11 o'clock, and then I just crossed my fingers and hope that Jason didn't do his magic, and he was, and he could.
He was on him.
He was. I was nervous, and it's a eerie sinking feeling when you put 86 inches on the board by 11, and you're like in your head, game over, and you just watch everybody go boop 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 boop, and you're right there. Flanagan was catching me. Leslie Ali, Paul. I'm like, I'm going to sit here and die and lose this tournament. So, but if that's the case, that's the case. I did what I could do. I really thought in my head that the fish that I had marked, I knew I was going to be in mid 80s. I thought I had it wrapped up, but Pueblo was fishing great. You guys timed it right.
Let's talk about Pueblo, right? Let's talk about Pueblo
real quick, Alex.
Real
quick. So we were talking about a few people that were chasing me, and we did this for multi, so I want to do this for bass as well. So James, you had 86 and a half. You had an 18 and a quarter as your big fish. Jason Dulong, right behind you, half-inch behind, with an 18 and a half and an 18 and a quarter and a 17. That's awesome. Leslie, 2 18s. Like, this is to see. You're probably not going to see that again in another tournament for CKFC this year. Typically, maybe Trinidad.
Trinidad.
We hit 87 at Trinidad last year, but a lot of this is timing too. But this is some, like, especially for Colorado. I know, a lot of times guys will watch the national stuff and they'll say, "Oh my God, he got 95 inches or something like this." These are awesome bags for Colorado here.
For sure.
And then Lindsey Martin and then Matt Flanagan rounding out the top 5. Alex, 6th place.
And I don't have my glasses on. I can't see it. Here's the thing for all you new guys that have fished with us. It's not the big fish up there in the front. It's not Jason's 18 and a quarter, 18 and a half, and 18 and a quarter. I can't see it, so I don't know. Look at his smallest fish and his next smallest fish. Look at Leslie's. Those are the ones right there that if he upgrades that, that's where he makes up distance. That's the kicker. So when I look at a leaderboard, I don't care about the big fish. I care about if he had a 13 in there, that's going to scare the hell out of me, because if he pulls an 18 and a half, there's a 5.5 inch upgrade. So it can happen. And that's a strategy going in. So if you have a smaller fish, one on your board, take the time to upsize your baits and go for that big bait, because if you're going to try to make a run
Agree.
at this at a win, you got to upgrade the small fish.
Agree.
Yep. Got a couple comments here. Sorry.
Yep.
Chen Char, love and hate fishing against these two. We all do. We all do. You probably had a TK 150 one out. You got that last one, says Gene. And then Chen Char loves TK 150s. And how do we let a prison escapee beat us? I'm not sure the truth.
That's good.
Which one of us is the prison escapee?
You are. You're talking about your orange shirt.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah, I just got out. That's why I'm so pale.
That's funny. That's pretty good.
Right on. Right on.
So I made a mistake at Pueblo at the bass tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty bad one, actually. I'm glad it didn't cost me money. I'm very glad it didn't cost me money. So I caught a 17-incher off the bed, right? And I was back in an area where I always submit my fish when I catch them. I don't play that game of sandbagging. I don't play that game, right? I submit my fish when I catch them. You know, not saying it's right or wrong. I don't care. Just what I do, right? So I caught that fish and I didn't have a signal where I was, and I tried to submit it and I didn't think about it. I put it in my life vest, my phone. There were so many beds. I just started to keep fishing for more beds, you know, while I was trying to submit while it's doing its thing. And then I catch another one probably like 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later. And it's a 16. And I submit that fish and I completely forget about the 17. I cross the lake after that to go look for a new area to go find some more fish. And I never, ever submitted that 17.
Wow.
Right? I get award ceremony happens. We get there late. Me and Matt got there late. I'm leaving. I'm driving home. And I always look at my fish, like I'm always looking at my fish, you know, and manage my catch. And I'm looking at it going, where's my 17? And I noticed it when I was driving home that I didn't submit my 17. So that cost me 2 inches because my smallest at that point was a 15.25. And it was a 17 and a quarter. Cost me 2 inches, which would have tied me with Lindsay. And I had big fish over her, so I would have got fourth place. Again, I'm glad it didn't cost me anything other than AOY points, which is big. 2 points is big. But yeah, had I been in third place or something, you know, like that was a rookie mistake. I'm an old man now, and I blame it on being senile and dementia setting in already, I guess. And it's just a terrible mistake. But yeah, a little lesson to everybody. You know, we get back.
Heat stroke. You had mini heat stroke.
Yeah, there you go. The heat stroke. Yeah.
You got to have an excuse. You're a fisherman, dude. Come on. Either
terrible,
you got to lie
terrible.
about it or you got to have an excuse.
Terrible mistake, man.
Thanks for the extra.
I'm gonna take you up on that, Matt. I'm gonna take you up on that.
Oh man.
Yeah. So let's talk real quick about Pueblo though, because it's on an upswing. So you know this year, I mean, you had 86 and what a half?
Yes, I do believe so.
Yeah.
86 and a half. Last year I won with the same weekend, by the way. It's the same exact weekend, but they weren't betted up last year the same. It was 86 and 3/4, I believe, last year, right?
Yeah.
And last year I think we had 10 people with over 80 inches last year. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. And this year we had 7 or 8 over 80.
Yeah, 7, I think.
7. Yeah, 7.
And 3 people had over 85 this year.
Yeah.
The quality of Pueblo is just getting better and better and better. And more largemouth. We were talking about this. I was talking to Jason and Paul about that. And like the South launch area, there's a lot of largemouth down there where traditionally there's been some, but not a lot. And now there's a lot more in there, you know. So that lake, I think it's getting better and better. How many of your fish were largemouth versus smallmouth, James?
All smallmouth. I had 0 largemouth. Yeah, I had 0. And you know, that's credit to you guys putting the schedule out during a prime time when probably one of the best fisheries in the state is at its prime. You know, the bad part about doing that is everybody finds them in pre-fish, and we might get into this later on. We call it burning it down, right? I mean, you got 51 guys out there pre-fishing. You don't think that 400 fish were stuck before a tournament even started?
And then multi-species. Then the multi-species tournament, people are trying to stick them.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I didn't go bed fishing on tournament on the multi-species. I didn't really go bed fishing. I would try to catch a couple, and then I stopped, but because I didn't want that exact reason. I thought I might go back there. I ended up going to a different area completely that I hadn't been to. I hadn't looked at. just because I didn't want to be around the whole crowd down south.
Pre-fishing
So-
has absolutely nothing to do with fishing in my mind.
I
It
agree.
really doesn't. If you want to be successful
agree.
at this game, do not pre-fish. Now, I'm not saying don't catch fish. You can jack on one or two to see if you're in the right area for the right quality at the right depth using the right lure. That, yeah, for sure. But to go out on pre-fish on a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and just start jacking fish, unless you're going to somebody else's area, then it's fine.
Yeah, you go to Eric. You go to Eric Ali's.
I'm
Go to
guilty.
Eric.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
Go find Eric's spot. Go jack all the fish, and then
I'll
he'll
say
have a
this.
fun chat with you.
So,
So
what I do a
one
lot.
thing, Alex, real quick. So I want to talk about the upswing because I thought the stats were the same. I just pulled up Journey X for 2023 at Pueblo, which I think it was a little earlier. It wasn't quite. They weren't on
Right.
beds yet. So you won with 86 3/4. We said there were only 4 of the top 4 were above 80.
Okay.
So it's actually
That's
fishing
more.
better right now, but there were a lot in the upper 70s there as well. But I will agree that fishing Pueblo, because it's kind of my home lake, I have noticed the spread of largemouth where I used to predominantly catch them, and I've only been here fishing like a little over 3 years, but I was predominantly catching them out west. Now I'm seeing them towards the dam as well, which is awesome. I'm seeing a lot better fish out there. I do think that fishery is going up. So
Agree. Yeah, agree. No, it's just getting so much better. I mean,
And you know what,
I don't know
Alex,
what it
last
is.
year, you would have, if you didn't have that little escapade happen, I think you, with what you were on, and that you could have pushed close to 90. And I honestly think there's a 90 plus
I agree.
bag in Pueblo. And if someone figures it out with live scope, and I hate to say that because those are fish that have been untouched, untapped, unseen. They're feeding on trout. They're feeding on whatever else is down there. Walleye, small walleye. They when they're shallow in their world, they're shallow at 20 feet. They spend most of their time in 50 to 60 feet.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I don't know, but
trout walleye,
unlocked.
the gizzard shad there are gigantic right now.
Yeah.
You see them swimming around? You'd catch a smallie and they're chasing it. And
you're talking 6 to 8 inch gizzards. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right. These comments are just awesome coming in here. We're gonna switch the subject here in a little bit. Eric Ali and Gene are going back, getting a little shit talking there. 3 largest fish were largies for Jason, which I thought so. And I'm about to do my pre-fishing video, and I caught largies. I was like, I think smallies might win this because they're bigger than Pueblo. I think it's pretty even right now. Pre-fishing for Leslie. Back. I think he's talking about the fishing on banging a spot up pre-fishing. This is an old account. Okay. Eric Ali's got a burner account for the podcast. I love it. And
that's awesome.
So, all right, cool. So I want to transition a little bit into well, actually, before we do that, I have 2 questions for Jim. You were talking about you sat on them and you were kind of playing with your live scope. One thing that whatever forward facing you're using, but one of the things, settings down on the bottom, you were talking about on 2D, that 100% applies on live scope as well. A lot of times guys are chasing fish thinking that they're just going to get live scope out of the box. They're going to throw it on their boat. They're going to see a fish in the middle of the water and they're going to cast at them and catch them. I have caught more fish fishing structure on live scope than fishing for fish. And what I mean by that is we talked about it with Caleb. You'll see the blip. And if you turn your settings down where you don't have all that crap in there and get rid of some of the noise, the same thing, you'll see the fish just ever so slightly move on the bottom. And so that's a good tip that can go outside of 2D as well. But I had a question for you, Jim. Did you play with perspective mode at all?
I did. I played with it when I was sitting in my spot practicing or protecting the fish that I had from the bass boaters, putting them in the box. I played around with it. it's not as effective in Pueblo or in the area I was fishing because it was steeper banks. So when you're trying to get that perspective of that layout or landscape mode, as they call it, I do believe in it's almost more beneficial when you're on a giant flat because it gives you that blueprint visual looking down. When it's a slope and you scope that, it just becomes a white noisy mess, and you can see the beams, how they break up. As much as I messed with the not the sensitivity, what do they call it? It's gain and autofocus on Garmin. You can change your autofocus and you can reduce the beams that make up the picture to try to get rid of that. But I was getting so much return back from the hard ground. It was very, very hard to do it and to be effective at it. I do need to practice on it for sure. But once again, my style of fishing isn't really a perspective mode style. Not saying I couldn't do it or I couldn't get good at it. I just don't know if it fits my style of fishing.
Yeah,
I
no, I get that. I just wanted to talk it a little quick. Well, let's move on. You guys were both tournament directors or presidents at one point in time. So no strangers here in Colorado. James, you run up the Colorado Kayak Bassmasters, which is a Bassmaster affiliate for that organization. Gets you into they qualify people to go to the Kayak Bassmaster Classic. And then Alex, you were once the president of this club. I know you've been super involved in this club for years and in many different roles. I thought it would be a cool idea to talk since we have both of you guys on here. It's about kind of some of the ideas, maybe the differences between the clubs as well. But kind of like, what is the mantra or the rules to live by as a tournament director or a president? If you had to pick one kind of mantra of how are you going to run as a tournament director or president, what is it? And Alex, saw your hand up, so I'll let you go.
It's patience. Have patience, Okay. And always know you're representing something more than yourself, right? You're always representing the club, and that's not just true of when you're running the club. That's true when I'm fun fishing. I'm out about just by myself fishing. I run into people. I have to carry myself. I'm always representing the club, right? When I was in that role, I always felt that way. That I always, need to live by the model of the club outside of the club as well. If that makes sense, right? Which, fits me pretty well anyway. So. But patience is pretty big, as James could tell you. I pestered James this last week. I'll be 100% honest here, right? I did about, you get people, I do it, and I'm guilty of it with James, right? TDs and people that run clubs are going to get questioned about certain things that maybe somebody has a question about or whatever, right? And you're going to get good questions, you're going to get dumb questions, you're going to get everything in between, right? People are going to blame you for everything. Like, why don't you, introduce yourself to everybody? Why don't you do this for the club? Why don't you, have these rules? And well, that club does this and this club does that. And people reach out to you and, you DQ somebody or fish or something, and they don't understand it. They get frustrated with it, which I understand. I get it. But you have to have patience, and that's the hard thing. That's the hardest part of it. Other than that, for me personally, I loved it because I love the sport. And my whole goal when I was involved as a board member was pay it forward. People paid it forward. Dave Kuzer, Johnny Waginka, huge. Jason, Paul. I could go down a huge list. Mitch, a bunch of guys. Eric, there's just so many guys before me that were in these clubs for years and years before me that helped me. My first time ever in a tournament of any kind, I've told the story before, my first time in a kayak period was in a tournament, fishing a tournament, a kayak tournament. So I was like, I knew nothing. I knew how to drag a jig with a worm. That's what I knew to catch walleye. That was it. I knew nothing about jerk baits then. I knew nothing about nothing. I didn't have bait caster until 2017. I bought a bait caster. and all the guys in the club taught me so much and brought me along and mentored me that I always felt obligated that I needed to pay it forward. So for me, it was about paying it forward, and it still continues to be that. Hopefully I still do that well. Hopefully. So for me, that's what it was, is paying it forward. So that's why I volunteered to be part of the board, and that's why I stayed on for 6 years. Was just to pay it forward and to get youth involved, to get people who are interested, maybe like Sergio Murillo's of the world. Love that guy. Ron Solberg. Love that guy.
Yeah.
I can only hope and pray that when I'm up there in age, that I can do the same thing he's doing. And those two guys, Sergio and Ron, they could be having the worst day not catching a fish, and they catch one little 13-inch fish, and the excitement they get from that one fish, that makes their day. Where for me, as competitive as I am, I get really pissed off that I'm not catching them, right? So I'm hoping at some point in my life I could change that around, not be so competitive and just enjoy it the way they do.
You won't.
Incredible.
Sorry,
what they do.
It's in your DNA to be competitive.
I know.
You can't get rid of it. Trust me, I'm trying to get rid of it. I can't.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, that's what it was for me. For me, the challenges is being patient, because a lot of people ask questions. You just got to understand that they're coming from where they're coming from. Where the questions are coming from.
Yeah.
Patience and paying it forward. James, I'm sorry, but that.
Yeah. Jim, what about you?
For me, it's creating a series to make anglers a better angler. I always say that all the time. And I don't know if a series actually does that, but just creating something that other people like Alex and you and everybody watching can love and do and be transparent about it and create. And I always say I'm the guy behind the scenes, and me and Matt Flanagan, we make this work, and a couple other people make it work. But this is really your guys' series. I want feedback from our anglers as much as possible, so you guys can have the best series that you want. Now, there are things that I put out to our members to get voted on, but there are other things from a tournament director standpoint that I implement that need to be there that won't get voted on, just because it creates a structure for a series that creates integrity. So that's the thing that I push for the most, is I want to make every one of you guys a better angler. And the only way to do that is to fish as much different stuff as you possibly can. And I know I get a lot of slack from people that we go out of state and we're a Colorado-based club, but that is just what I feel creates the best anglers in our area, because we can only, with CKFC and CKB existing in the same place, we can only hit Boyd, Horsetooth, Trinidad, and Pueblo so much before we're all just going to get burnt out of it. And then you're going to get the same guys who find sweet spots, and then all of a sudden it's going to be the same guys winning. And then before you know it, you don't have any newcomers because they don't want to show up because they're getting their asses handed to them by the same 7 guys all the time. So that's tough. So you don't, and we're all growing and we're all becoming better anglers. And I'd love to see somebody win or place that's not the regular names, right? That, to me, that is great. And if anybody ever wants to go fishing with me, the door is always open. And if you need lessons on anything, not that I'm the greatest, I just have information that could possibly take your game to the next level and make you a better angler. Because if I make you better, it's going to make me better, because I have to now step up my game because I taught you something more now, right? So that's what it's about.
I'll say this too, if I could just real quick. So the differences between clubs is kind of one of your questions you had too, right?
Yes.
For me, I've always been the believer, and this is my belief only, right? It's just what I believe. CKFC to me is that starter club, is that intro club, that club that welcomes everybody. Not to say CKB doesn't, I'm just saying it welcomes the newbies really well. Like you're new to fishing, you're just getting into it. It's a charity organization to give 100% of what they make back to the community, right? So you can look at it as a learning experience. At the same time, you're doing something good by giving back. We're giving back to the community, right? So to me, that's what CKFC. It's a great starter point. And again, your money goes somewhere good if you don't do well. At the end of the award, everybody's going to talk to you. They're going to tell you how they caught him. I'll tell you exactly where I caught him. I don't care. I'll tell you all the details. I do it all. It's on the water, right or wrong. I'll tell you exactly how to catch him. I've done this, and Sawyer could vouch for this. I gave Sawyer one time during a tournament because I had to go in because back in the day we had to be, when I was tournament director, I had to be back at shore like an hour and a half before the tournament ended because I had to set everything up because we had to look at everybody's pictures physically before Tourney X. I gave Sawyer my rod that I was using with my baits and said, throw it here, drag that Carolina rig back, you'll catch fish. And I left him at that, right? So on the water, I share information. I just do. That's what I do. Right? But so to me, that's a starter club because we share information like really, really well. We don't try to hide anything. It's more fun but competitive at the same time, right? CKB to me is the next level up. CKB to me is that level where you want to compete, the big boys. I mean, everybody fishes both trails. Don't get me wrong, but that's where like it's a competitive spirit. But we're all friends for the most part. You know, we all share information. We all, you know, after the events, we're all talking how we caught them, what we did, what we didn't do, what we did wrong, all that good stuff. But the camaraderie is just great in both clubs. But sorry, I just lost my earpiece. Sorry about that.
I'll speak while
There you
Alex
go.
is
There.
finding his
Sorry.
earpiece.
Yeah. So, anyways, sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I was going to say, just as like a newer guy to fishing both of them, but I like how you put that. So I came in, this is my third year now, from not knowing how to catch a walleye. The first tournament, my wife was just like, Stormy, she's like, hey, you should go fish tournaments. I think that would be fishing would be a good relief from work for you. And it was great. But I fished the first tournament, and I ended up talking to Alex and Ronnie Romero. And I was like, hey, I have no clue how to catch walleye. They ended up rigging my rods for me and showing me what I needed to do. Went out and I caught like a 23-inch walleye. Is the only one I caught. I didn't catch a limit of them out of John Martin. And then I fished some more tournaments. And Alex was always there, you know, hey, let me show you this. And Alex is the only one, like a lot of guys do it. Alex does it all the time. But being able to pay that forward, you know, at the end of last season, this was my second year, you know, I was fishing at Pueblo and we're wrapping up the end of the day. And I, you know, couldn't catch a bigger bass than, you know, I don't know, 15 inches or whatever that I was stuck on. But I was slamming them on a net on a flat. And I see a guy over in a John boat fishing with his son. And I took a handful of Ned rigs, gave it to him. I said, see that buoy over there? I said, yeah. I said, go over there, throw around that buoy. You guys are going to catch fish. Being able to pass that forward is kind of how I view CKFC. There's a 4,000 member club that, you know, 95% of them, 99% of them do not even fish our tournaments. We can teach these people how to catch fish, the true sportsmanship of being on the water and being a good ambassador for conservation, for just being a good person and helping somebody else catch a fish and not being a jerk about it. I think we're doing a lot of good stuff there. Now, this is my first year fishing CKB. So we'll go into that. The way I look at that is kind of, now I got to put on my big boy pants and I got to go out by myself and see what I can do. So that's kind of how I view it. You know, the rules are a little different. You know, there's no rule sharing and stuff like that, but it's for a bigger purpose. Yeah, you can fish and the payouts are different because CKFC is also a charity and a nonprofit. So they're working towards that. CKB is more of, hey, this is what it's about. This is about fishing tournaments. So I guess, James, I'll let you talk it because I don't want to steal the thunder of what CKB is, but go ahead. And what is in your mind what CKB is? Obviously, you got the qualifier, which is huge, but how do you view that as a separation from CKFC?
I say no more. You guys just nailed it on you know, you hit it right on the head. And I don't think, I mean, CKFC's yes, beginner club, but it's not, because like you said, the same guys that fish with us, I wouldn't have any of the guys fishing with us if they didn't come from CKFC. So CKFC is the OG. You guys are doing something that we're not. We're still competitive, but like you said, it's the charity, it's the learning, it's the and giving out information and helping each other. Here's a perfect example. So if you're fishing with CKFC and you're struggling, Alex, myself, anybody will come over to you. We'll hand you a bait and we'll tell you how to do it. If Alex is struggling at CKB, and sorry, I'm just using you as an example.
No.
And I pedal past him. And I say, "Hey, dude, how you doing?" And he's like, "Man, I got 2, but it's not a great day." And I'm whacking on him, right? And I'm in the lead, and Alex is mid pack. He's got some good fish, right? If I look at Alex and I see him in 4 feet of water, and as I'm pedaling by, I look at him and I go, "You might want to think a little deeper." Okay. That with CKB and those anglers, that one clue, Alex will turn that around. I will be in 5th and he will be in 1st. You cannot give the information sharing during tournament, before the tournament. If you give any of the guys that fish with us one little piece of the puzzle, they're going to take that to the next level. And before you know it, you being nice, just cut your own throat. And not that that's a bad thing. It's just, like you guys said, I get the feeling that it's game time. Like we're all friends until that ding starts, and we're still friends, but it's just different. You gotta watch what you say. And then how do you balance the difference? Like that's why I prefer to not say anything to anybody on the water really during any tournament, especially CKB, because let's say Matt Arledge's young son, I think he's in his teens, right? He wants to come fish with us or whatever. And he's sitting on the point, on the shallow area, and he's casting a jig and he's working it up the hill. Well, the bite is he should be out casting to the shallows and working it down. So I run by him and I say, "Hey man, I know you're a young kid. I want to get you on fish. You might want to come out to the deeper water and present your bait from a different direction." And all of a sudden he didn't have any fish. I give him that tip and now he's got 5 good ones. Yet I didn't give that information to Trev or to Alex or to yourself. I just drove by you guys and said, "How's it going?" You're like, "Yeah, I'm doing all right." And I didn't say nothing to you, but I helped him, but I didn't say nothing to you. Is that fair for the overall outcome of the whole entire tournament? So
right.
It's those kind of things that you help someone, but you don't help someone else. Because if I told Trev, "Hey man, they're out on the points," I'm done. Trev's going to beat me. I'm not going to give him that information. So why would I choose to help somebody and not help somebody else? That's at our club. At CKFC, it's always for help and everybody, for the betterment of everybody. And not saying that we're not. It's just different. I don't want to even say you guys are a beginner. And let me just clarify, please, everyone listening out there, CKB and CKFC are not in competition with each other at all. In my heart, I really hope that that's not what it's about. I hope we can coexist together in the same state. We go to different areas. I try to stay away from Pueblo when you guys are down in Pueblo. I'll go there in October. You guys go there in May. I'll go up to Horsetooth in May. You guys are there in June or July. So we work it out so we can coexist to give everybody the best experience that they can have.
What we don't want to happen, James, because you see this in so many states. Look at the Nebraska guys. They're 2 clubs.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't fish each other's events. They don't.
Yeah.
In California, same thing. They don't fish each other's events. They hate the other clubs, And I hope that never happens to us. I hope it stays great and just gets better. There's been some bumps, of course. There's always going to be bumps, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to scheduling and things like that. But that's where communication's got to be key, right? Again, I'm not involved, so I can't really talk too much. So it's not my place. But just hope, and it will. I think it'll get better. This club, and we all fish the same events, and we're all pretty tight. So hopefully it goes.
I think the further we get, the longer we get in the tooth here with having 2 clubs, the more we're able to figure out, how to work schedules together and do all of this. But I will say, anybody that's out there from the outside looking in, when you try to put in, we fish 10 events. What do you guys have? 5, James, or 6?
6. I think we fished 6.
So
that's the whole summer.
That's exactly. That is every weekend in the summer. So guys, It's one thing to
It's
say,
tough.
okay, why is it, if we're ever double booked, which we're typically not, because we do deconflict, but guys, it's a lot.
It's tough.
We try really hard not to, use like Memorial Day or holiday weekends so that people, one, we don't want to be out there with all the party boats, and
Yeah.
and two, those are typically family weekends that people are spending. So I would just give a big kudos to everybody on the boards that have been doing the scheduling together and going forward. But we do have some good questions. I've got a good question from Chen, probably the best question of the night. Have you guys ever had to DQ someone? I don't want to go into specifics on any of these, just out of dignity or decency, because mistakes happen. But I'm sure it's happened on both. So what do you guys say?
Go ahead.
We've DQ'd a few people through the years. Not many. I won't say it's been many, but it's been a couple. But when we say DQ, let me rephrase how we say this, right? Because it's not really DQing a person. We've had to DQ people's fish for many reasons. So I'll give you one example. A guy didn't have the proper measuring board. It's happened multiple times, many times actually. Not multiple, it's happened many times. Where somebody shows up, especially we switch the catch, they showed up with the old hawk draw. Or before they come with some random measuring board or a ruler or a tape measure, like you see it all, right? Like they come with these things, like, and they're like, I don't understand. They're all the same. They're 12 inches is 12 inches, Like, no, there's a standard. You always have to have a standard. You have to explain to them. There's a standard, and the standard is you have to have a standard. Otherwise, yeah. So everybody has the same board, So we've had to DQ fish, not people, for that. We have DQ'd two. Trying to remember how many people it is. It might be just one. Yeah, I think it was just one. Another guy we gave a pretty good warning to. One guy, yeah, he can no longer fish with CKFC. Period. End of story. I won't get into details of what happened, but it was something a little more major. Yeah, different things. Fish location. That was another one we had. Unfortunately, DQ somebody's fish. Actually, I think we had 3 or 4 people that season. We had to DQ fish, all their fish because they had the wrong location. Unfortunately, another one we had DQ was because they left the lure in the mouth, and measured it.
Yeah.
It's in the rules. Those kinds of things. Just things like that. But actual people, I know one guy we've banned forever.
Yeah. As far as
To
disqualifying.
give you some background on that guy, I'll give you background. Like, maybe I shouldn't. I had to call the police. Let me put it that way. He called and threatened, and it was a deal. Okay. It was So that was an extreme case.
All right. So as far as DQing someone, like you talked about, I do want to poke something out real quick before I go to Jem on it. But hey, if your fish are being disqualified, you probably need to read the rules. 9 times out of 10, it's because people didn't read the rules. And we'll see people on Facebook on the page that'll ask, hey, how's the club with measuring fish and doing this at tournaments? If you read the rules, you're good. There's a tournament captain's meeting that Jeremy does. There's a PDF with all the rules, which is black and white. So if your fish, doesn't touch a line or whatever, that sort of stuff, open mouth, that sort of stuff. But I mean, there is a due diligence, regardless what trail you're on, to know the rules that you're fishing on that tournament. And if you don't read them and you get, you mess something up your first couple tournaments, no big deal. You're going to learn and you're going to get better for it. I had some, I don't know what it was. It wasn't open mouth. So my fish the tail was like in the middle, so it wasn't actually crossing a number. It was in one of those areas where like the number's written like 15 inches or whatever. And hey, the tournament director or the judge cannot assume that fish, they can't just imagine that it's crossed a line. And it's in the rules. I didn't read it. That was my first season. And I dropped like 3 places at Pueblo. I think I would have been top 5 my first year. But hey, I learned a lot. I'm glad I made learned that lesson then, and not on one when I would have possibly won a tournament. So
yeah, Jason Duong DQ'd himself one time from a
Oh.
tournament
He was telling me about this. Yep.
because
Yeah.
a PFD violated a PFD rule.
Yeah.
He didn't knowingly do it till
Didn't know
halfway
he
through the
didn't have it on.
tournament. Yeah, like a few hours into the tournament, he realized it and messaged the board, said, "I'm DQing myself. I'm out. I'm done with the tournament." You know, so that was good for him to do it for himself. You know.
Stand up, dude.
Sorry,
Yeah.
James.
Yeah, you know, we never had to DQ anybody, but like you said, it's disqualification of fish because, you know, you can't see the complete identifier. We'll give somebody a deduction or a ding. We're fairly new, so we haven't run across that. And as you know, I make it very, very clear in my captain's meeting. I really reiterate to everybody that, hey, please make sure we can see the entire fence. Make sure we can see the number past the tail. Make sure the identifier is in the picture and it's clear. It's not fuzzy. Make sure that when you write it, you don't write it like a 3-year-old. We can read your letters and your numbers, right? Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I don't keep saying that to be a jerk about it. My goal, and we've been close a lot of times, is to have a tournament where we have no conflict of anything at all. That's my goal. I want to train all of you guys to make sure we're over the top of the pictures and we're submitting good pictures because, and I'm going to say it again, we work so hard. We buy $1,000 kayaks. We buy $500 reels, $300 rods, $25 jerk baits, right? And we do this to catch a fish. So when you catch that fish, why don't you give yourself the best opportunity to turn in the best quality picture that you can possibly provide? And if you don't know that, then go to the club rules per club, because that's the thing that bugs me. There's not an industry standard across the board for kayak fishing. You know, it's, you know, is that mouth cracked? Well, that guy says it's cracked. That guy says it's not cracked. Well, what's a crack? What's a derp? Does everybody know what a derp is? It's one of those fish that have a bigger bottom lip than an upper lip. And then you push them together, that upper lip won't cross, it won't close. So do you ding somebody because of the DNA of the fish? You know, what's the spirit of the rule? You know, that's the part of being a tournament director, and Alex can vouch for this. You guys are all my friends outside of all this. But when I have to run a tournament, I have to be a professional. I have to wear the hat of tournament director. And there's times when I have to ding my friends. And at that point, I can't let friendship and people who are closer to me than others get better treatment. That's not fair to anybody. And that will never, ever happen in ours. I will ding my grandmother as well as anybody else, whether you're my worst enemy. And if my grandmother starts to join tournaments, I'm going to stomp her out too. I mean, that's just the competitive nature in all of us. And I hope you all have that, because if you don't, then you're not fishing for the right reasons.
I'll say this too.
I don't know.
With our board, I always told everybody, we have to judge our fish extra hard.
Yeah.
We can't, because it can't even a little sliver look like we're getting any favoritism than anybody on the board.
You said
like we example. Have to judge them extremely harder than we do anybody else's fish. Because we have to.
And I don't judge our fish either. I don't judge our fish. I pay somebody to judge our fish out of either our budget or, honestly, I'll take it out of my own pocket. Just because, and thank God, real quick, Tourney X got rid of allowing tournament directors to have locations past a certain time. So I cannot go back to other tournaments and go, oh, where did Eric and Trev and Alex catch them? And I want to see that. And I'm going to pattern that. And I'm going to put the schedule together so I can base that pattern on everything that was. That's crap. That's James. That's zero integrity.
That's super important for you, for all of you, Matt, the board, for you guys to keep on, make a special post about that, because a lot of people don't know that still. They still think that it's there forever. So there's people that don't fish your trail or our trail or any trail.
Yeah.
They don't fish anymore because of that one. They don't want anybody to have their spots. They do not fish tournaments for that one reason. Now maybe they come back because now they know that maybe their spots aren't going to be out there forever, and so that might be important for both clubs to make a specific post just about that, explaining how that works now. Because I really believe we might bring some people back that used to fish tournaments that don't anymore because of that reason.
Yeah, it might be good to get Dwayne on a show. I think he'd probably be down for it.
That'd be great, actually.
He's been on Gene's podcast before, but basically just not so much an update of what Tourney X is, but we can air as Colorado what we'd like to see in future updates, and
Yeah.
and just have a discussion of what's actually, here's the thing, we can ask for the moon. Every update that he makes costs money. So
Yeah.
obviously, it's a giant step to be hiding those locations because, like you said, Jim, you're now leveling that playing field. You're not leaving a gray area. Is kind of how I see it. I think the ultimate fix is to geocache or geofence
Geofence.
a
Yep.
body of water that
Yep.
you're fishing, and no one sees anything but yes or no, you caught that fish in that body of water that was
That's
designated.
the ultimate.
It'll call it.
But it costs a lot of money. So ultimately, I think that's the goal. I think we just have to keep voicing that to the people that are.
Our sport's still so young.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
well,
The sport's still young, and it's all. It's still.
Catch photo release is going outside of the kayak realm. It is going to.
It is.
I completely agree. Even if it's not catch photo release, it'll be catch weigh release, and we're not going to be bringing bass into the shore and weighing them at bass boat tournaments. I think in 10 years that's dead. Probably shorter than that.
Agreed.
But
if someone advocates for that right now in Colorado, it will be changed in 2 years, guarantee it, because I've already talked to Doug and I've kept my mouth shut. He's at Doug is the lead inspector for down in Pueblo, and he has a lot of pull with CPW and he goes to their meetings. I've been approached because Tourney X gives you that data. Tourney X gives you, It's right there to let them know the fish that were caught. You guys are creating creel surveys with Tourney X, showing them the fish that are caught in their lakes. It shows the time and the location. The biologists can make these fisheries better based off the information Tourney X is getting. So if someone opens their mouth and pushes that through the state of Colorado, and I don't want to be that guy to ruin it for the live weigh-ins because I'll get hated by a lot of other people. So I agree with you, Matt, on that. And real quick, before we go on to the next thing, I'll keep it real quick. Back to judging again. I've reached out to people in CKFC to judge our fish at CKB. So here's my criteria for that. It's board members that I reach out to. Whoever's going to judge our fish at CKB are going to have experience judging fish, know what to look for, and how to look for things that are going to cause people to submit sketchy pictures, so to speak. I need someone with an experience. But here's the deal. There's a little tab on the Tourney X. Let's say Alex is on the board and he's the president. And I say, hey, Alex, you guys aren't fishing this weekend. I'll pay you some money. Can you judge our fish for us? And he says, yeah, I'll do it. I'll put Alex down as a judge, but you will not get the location tags of those fish. And the reason why is because someday you might fish with us, and I don't want you to snapshot that picture for your own benefit. So I don't give full access to certain judges if they're within the state of Colorado, because I don't want them to have the waypoints from the winners. Just once again, to keep the playing field level and to not put any shade on that particular board member at CKFC saying, oh, Strawbridge is letting him see everything from his club, and that's why he's fishing so well at CKFC now. I don't want any of that, right? So that's important. That's huge. Just little things like that make the difference, that I think people don't realize we do as board members, that we do behind the scenes to make a better experience for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's important to have posts about this stuff. I really do. I really think it would ease a lot of people's minds. Maybe we paid a judge once. Just FYI, we paid a judge once out of state. Because we wanted to do something different. Have them always do it. The same person. We're going to pay them money. We did pay them money, and they quit on us after the first event. They said, "You guys catch too many." They said, "You guys catch too many fish."
Yeah,
that's what they told us. Like, I'm not doing this again.
I've been told.
I think it's a Pueblo. I don't remember where it was. I don't remember where it was. I think it's a Pueblo event. I don't remember, but they said, "You guys catch too many fish. I'm not doing this again."
Cookie cutter Colorado. That's the hard part, where you get those 413 inches, and you're like, "Is that the same fish? Is that marking on that one?" And you overlay pictures, and it's a process.
Well, hey, I want to show something. We were talking about Tourney X, and I'm going to just hover over this. So I don't know this is available on the app, but it is available on the browser. And you guys might know, but if I scroll and I just hover over fish count, there we go. So it'll even give you an estimated weight for your 86 and 3/4 is 15.15 pounds. So you can get an estimated weight for these as well through TourneyX, which is cool. Is it 100% accurate? Absolutely not. But just what I was getting back to of, taking fish. We're not, the goal of not taking fish away is obviously just to kill less fish. And especially on a tournament that we just did where they were all on beds, a ton of fish were on beds. We are catching these fish and they are going instantly back to that bed. Like, as much time as it takes to catch it, take a picture, release it, you can watch them. They go straight back to the bed and they are doing the business they were doing before. Whereas you're not transporting them, also putting a bunch of stress on the fish, taking them out of the water, and then releasing them at a boat ramp or delayed mortality. We know about all that. Whatever. There's a bass tournament at John Martin, which God help them because they're fishing John Martin. But there is a catch weigh release tournament that I have a friend fishing in, I think this weekend or next. So it's happening in Colorado already. So I'm excited for that is happening.
And don't forget, at the bass boat level, the state length comes into effect. So these guys are boxing, stressing, and potentially killing 15-inch or larger fish, where kayak guys, I don't want to say we don't target them. We release a lot. We can catch 8-inchers up to 12s, up to 15s to 20s, whatever. And we're releasing them back. Those guys are boxing large fish. And for a 15-inch fish in a lot of the state, that could be a 10-year-old fish that survived a lot of stuff.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Got some comments here for us. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
No, go ahead. Do the comments first.
All right, cool. So, Gene, flat out honor and to fish the events. James Strawbridge agreed. He's a fantastic ambassador for our sport and BASS as a whole.
Thank you.
Yeah, he also has some love. Alex and Jeremy, the only two directors I've done for CKFC, both of them amazing with helping us to adjust the kayak game. Rolling in sport, always helpful. Jen, 4 years in, still getting my ass kicked by the same 10 guys. Eric Ole, I'm tired of you guys getting better. Slow down. Leslie, definitely putting my big boy pants on at CKV. I feel that one. You have a supply, Eric Stresser. That's a nice. Regardless of the series, I'm giving Alex the bird when I'm passing him.
And I can't be too much on Jason's favorite list. I don't get Christmas cards from him. I mean, I remember 2019, I screwed him like big time out of AOY when I won it. And then this tournament, and then at our CKB championship, I pull a last minute heroics out of my butt and kick him down on that one. I'm surprised Jason actually talks to me, but man, he scares the hell out of me, but he's always right there. And there's times he's beat me. So I guess it all comes around, but I love you, Jason. I hope you still talk to me.
Dude, so, talk about power couples, right? You talk about the Ali's, you talk about, Sandy Roberts maybe, and Clay.
I know where you're going.
To me, the true power couple?
Jason Duong and Paul Roth.
Bam, 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 bam.
Yep.
Oh no! Oh no! Couple of what?
The short kayak trailer.
So real quick about Jason and Paul, right? Those guys, I've traveled with those guys. I fished with them in Kentucky or Alabama. I fished with them at Cotto Lake. In Louisiana, I fished them at Lake Fork. I've stayed with them. I've traveled, great guys. They've taught me so much, man, really have. They get a bad rap, I think, some people, and they feel it, and it annoys them. So I just want to say it publicly, right? That a lot of people, like me, they're sharing information or, dude, those two guys cannot fish differently. Their styles are night and day.
Yep.
They do not fish the same areas, the same spots, the same way. They are not completely different. Styles of fishing, so they're not even close to each other usually. Jason's more of the sit around, slow down, power fish. Paul can power fish, but he finesse fishes. He does crazy baits. He's all over the lake. Me and him go all over the lake. I see him everywhere. So just to get that out there, those guys, as much as a power couple they are, they sleep in the same bed probably. They give each other massages when they get back, every night. Probably cut each other's toenails. I don't know what else they do, but
I want to know
the
how
one,
they figure out what ramp they're going to. Are they like two old ladies arguing
right?
in the hotel room, beating each other with the
No,
pan, going, "I want to go to this ramp. No, I want
right.
to go to this," and because they share
I think
Jason's
they're pretty
truck, right?
easy. What I think happens, and I don't know this to be fact because I never really asked him that question.
I know what happens. I
I
know
think it's
exactly
wherever
what
Jason
happens.
wants to go because he's driving the trailer.
100%. Jason's saying, I'm the driver. I'm taking us there. Paul, get in.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
And
both their
then also,
personalities are so chill. Like
right.
you could be like, "Hey, a volcano just erupted, and there's a bunch of rocks falling on your head," and both those guys would be like, "Yeah, that's cool."
yeah. But apparently, Jason was telling me, I think this is what it really is. Jason was telling me that Paul is not a morning person. So
Right.
I think Jason just wakes him up, or maybe he doesn't. He throws him in the truck and drives him to the ramp that he wants to go, throws him in his kayak and says, "Wake up, you're fishing today." And then Paul just still kicks all of our asses.
No, what he does
Uh,
really, Matt, he leans over and whispers in his ear, "Wake up, honey."
Hey, we got another great comment. I wanted to, Nana Strawbridge got a target on her. That's good. That was great. And it wasn't Boyd. Gene's got the zingers today. I think he's talking about saying we caught too many fish. Yeah,
It wasn't Boyd. Yeah.
Everything is
Everything's true.
Oh no, broke back fishing. Oh my god.
Oh god. Oh man. Hey, I just want to say though, if you guys have any complaints about the way that things are run, there are going to be some new openings for the CKFC board in
Bingo.
2025, and that is your ultimate way to make a change there. Kind of joking there, but no,
And give back.
it is a
And
good
give
way to
back.
make a change and give back to the club that's maybe helped you along your way in fishing,
And Matt,
or just
every
help others.
position is going to be available, correct?
Um,
As far as you
most
know,
of
every
them,
position.
most if not all, yeah.
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 So yeah. Real quick, I just want to touch on this because I think we talked about this backstage for a second. Am I jumping the gun here, Matt? About crowding and talking a little bit about since Colorado
That's
Waters.
so. Hey,
Colorado Waters is
let me
go
show you
for
what
it.
I'm working with here. So this
Yep.
is what I do. I started this on Eric Lee's, and I think the podcasts are going a lot smoother this way. So this is my board that I have right underneath me, and we go over a list of everything. The next thing is etiquette. So
There you go.
let's dive into it. So I wanted to lead this off with my experience with it because, like I said, this is my third season, so still new in fishing tournaments, and I'm fishing differently this season. And I don't know if it's hurting me. I'm doing terrible this season, but I don't know if this is because I'm just kind of recognizing some things or maybe being a little too cautious on some things. But I do think it's making me better. And my goal is to ultimately be the best angler I can, but ultimately be the best sportsman I can as well. I've noticed getting into etiquette this season, say someone was fishing a point, and then maybe someone else is fishing another point, and there's a cove between them, or a stretch between them. I'm not as comfortable fishing that area anymore. And I think that's, everyone's going to have, and this is just my take on it. I think everyone's going to have their personal take on what's acceptable and what's not for them to encroach on someone else's space when they're fishing. And that's probably the biggest thing on etiquette. But I do want to get into that. I feel like the further that I'm getting along in this, and I know there are several people that I've talked to that I really respect in the game. I'll call her out, Lindsay Martin. I've watched her. I've seen Lindsay where I've seen people catching fish and know that she needs one more. I'm like, Lindsay, we've all seen them. They're crowded up over there. You can get your fifth fish or whatever. And she'll straight up tell you that's not my style. And she's not going to do it. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying like, hey, there's community holes or whatever. But I think as you go through and progress, for my first year of just not knowing, and we have to have grace for the people that just don't understand, to now I've been doing this for a few years. I know what it felt like maybe for me when I was really on a good bite and I had someone come right up on my spot. There's differences as we progress as anglers in there, and I wanted to talk about that tonight because I think we have two people that are really experienced and can talk about them from running clubs. So let's talk about etiquette and maybe some rules that you guys, or what are the most important parts of etiquette on the water for you?
I'll go. Okay. I think me and James might actually not have the same opinion on this. Maybe. Um, maybe I don't know for sure. But so number one is communication. Period. That's number one. Right? Is here in Colorado, our lakes are small. We all know the spots. You might have one honey hole here or there that maybe not very many people know about, but 90% of the spots everybody knows. That's the truth at most lakes. And those 90% of spots, Horsetooth, we all know. There's not Horsetooth to me is the same as Trinidad. As big as it is, it fishes just as small as Trinidad. Period. It does. If you don't go up north, I mean, if you go north, it's tough. It's a race. It's a race, in my opinion, for most of the spots, right? So when you get in scenarios like that, Trinidad, Horsetooth, places at Pueblo for sure. Pueblo's bigger though, but Chatfield's another small lake. You get Boyd, same thing. To me, because they're community holes, you got to communicate. I mean, you want to fish as much as the next guy does. To me, the first guy that gets there obviously gets first right to it. But to me, they shouldn't sit on it all day. If they're catching them, that's great. They sit there all day. But you got to expect there's going to be some other people going to fish close to you-ish, right? Now, should they be right up on top of you? No. Should there be a castaway? At minimum, a castaway, right? If not two. If you're just like drop shotting a point is what I mean, not casting, right? Working, like you're working a stretch a little different. You see somebody working a stretch, go to them. Say, how far down can I fish? Is that okay if I go fish, pointed area, half a mile, quarter mile down, whatever it might be, that tree over there? Can I fish that over there? Can I fish behind you? Is that okay if I fish behind you? You work and I'll come behind you. Is that okay? You say no, it's fine. I'll move on somewhere else. Just communicate. Ask. You come up to me, I'll tell you, dude. I'll hold your kayak next to me. Let's fish together. I don't care. I'll beat you still. That's always my philosophy. I'm not trying to be cocky. I'm just saying my competitive nature in me, I almost want you to come up next to me because I want to prove something to myself, not anything about you, that I can still beat you. I'll give you the same lure. I don't care. That's just my philosophy, my thinking, my way, right?
Until that guy Jackson 18 right in front of you.
That's okay. And you know what? I'll do this. I'll do this, and I'll cry a little bit on the inside because I got beat. And my cockiness, I'll take it down a little bit.
I thought
I
thought Alex and I were really good friends. And he just likes me being next to him, so he can show me that he's better than me.
So I have a different philosophy, but I mean, honestly, it's communication. It comes down 100% to communication. Understanding if you see somebody working a stretch, don't go jump in front of them. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're like at Trinidad and you're working on that north end and you're working that stretch goes a good mile. You don't own the whole mile, right? I mean, there's got to be limits to it because it's so small, right? So my opinion is go up to them, talk to them. Hey, is it okay if I jump on maybe this far down? Is that okay with you? If not, can I come behind you and that little stretch you already passed? Can I fish behind you? And I'll give some people this might be a little advice, a tip for people maybe. I did this to James. I don't know if you remember this, James, or not, because I don't know if you did. We fished Boyd tournament a couple years ago. I won that tournament. We launched the same area. I went to one side of the mouth. He went to the other side of the mouth, started there. I wanted to go where he was. There's like reeds, stick-ups. But he beat me there, so I went to the other side. And I fished that, and I didn't catch anything. I didn't expect to catch anything. I was waiting for James to finish that spot. And so James fished it. He fished it. He was done with it. He moved on. He left. I came right behind him, and I used James as a tool for me. And so what I did, and here's a little tip. I saw James fishing. I think he was throwing either a spinner bait or something like that. And those weeds are flipping. I don't remember right now what it was. but I went and did the opposite. I went and threw a buzzbait over the top of it. He just eliminated something for me, if that makes sense. You know, I put the pattern a little bit more together because he eliminated it for me, right? Again, I don't know the etiquette on that exactly, right? To be fair, I mean, I've been fishing tournaments for a while now, but I didn't come from the boat world, so I don't understand how that worked and how that
No,
is.
that's all fair. I left that spot. You rolled in on it. You made an adjustment when I wasn't catching fish. You're 100% absolutely right. There's nothing wrong with what you did. Now, if you rolled in on me and said, "Hey, I'm going to start casting over me with a buzzbait," we're gonna have problems.
Right.
I'll
say this too. Yeah, another perfect example, and this is etiquette for sure, 100% etiquette as we get later in the seasons, or even during a tournament for that matter. Let's say, and I'll give you a first-hand experience, and this is with that guy right there sitting in the jumpsuit there. Right? I was at Horsetooth, and me and Eric Ali were battling for AOY. Not Horsetooth, Trinidad. We were battling for AOY. It was between me and Eric. And basically, whoever won that day was going to win AOY. And I'm fishing a very popular point. Everybody knows that little island when you launch, right? That island. I'm fishing around it, and James is fishing the other side. And we don't see each other. But as we start turning the corner, we see each other. I look at James. James like, dude, it's all yours. Because he says, I know what you're fishing for. He knew what I was fishing for AOY that day. James is fishing for the tournament and trying to win the tournament, but I had the bigger stakes for AOY. So he said, it's yours. And he left it for me. And I can't thank him enough, even though I didn't catch one right there that day, but still, regardless, he gave me the opportunity for that. So if somebody's fishing for something bigger than you that day, AOY, for example, and you're not in it, but they are, give them first right. Even if you beat them there, give them first right, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Another thing, during a tournament, if it's late in the day and you know Eric and Jason are battling it out and you're not really in it, you know, let's say you're just having a bad day, you know, a Matt day. Sorry, Matt.
Pow! Shots fired.
Shots fired.
Alex likes to fish next to me because he knows what not to do. He's like, well, Matt's
Right.
throwing this. I won't do that.
You know, if they're battling it out and you know you're kind of out of it, just move. There you go. Hey, you don't do that, Matt, because I'll pull out my 3 trophies. I got my 3 OYs right here. I got 3 of those bad boys.
We'll put this one.
Nice.
No, I just say, you know, if you know they're up there in the standings that day, just give them their space. That's it. James?
No, I agree.
So that's my take on it, and I know James may have a little different takes. Yeah, please.
No, I think you're spot on. And once again, I can't emphasize what Alex said. When he rolled up on that point, we were both fishing that point, and he came around that corner, and I realized it was Alex, and he was in contention for AOY. Out of respect, the unwritten rule is I'm going to back. Even if I was winning that tournament, the conversation would, if I was in the lead of that tournament and he rolled up, the conversation would be totally different on my point. I would say, hey, man, how are we going to work this out? I could possibly win this tournament and you're going to win possible AOY. Can we fish this place alone? Or here's the other option. Rotation is a big thing and timing is a big thing. We're both here. You have it for this hour and then back off of it and shout out, I'll go fish over here. And when you're going to pull off of it, I'm going to go find something. I'm going to go come back to it and we'll figure out how we can coexist together in the same area. You know, that's the thing. Let me give you an example of what happened at CKFC this weekend. I posted up my 86.5 inches by 11 o'clock. I come flying around by the North Shore Marina where that garage kind of boat launch thing is for the CPW keeps their boats. Yep. And I come around there and Chen is sitting on top of that point, which is now underwater. Guys usually drive their truck out there and they shore fish out there. He's sitting on that point and I see him out there and he jacks one. And I literally stopped fishing and I watched him fight this fish because it was TV. I get to watch TV. It was cool. So he catches the fish and he's fighting it and he's fighting it and he's fighting it. And he finally reaches, he grabs the net and he scoops it in there. And I start doing this from the distance, right? I start clapping, right? And he looks around and he goes, hey, what's up? He goes, are you going to give anybody else a chance to win this tournament? And I'm like, yeah, I said, I'm trying, but I'm trying to seal the deal. So I rolled up on him and I could sneak behind him because I wanted those tires on the other side of him. So I said to him, I said, hey man, is it okay if I sneak behind you? I want to fish those tires, or is that where you were going to go next? You know what Chen said to me? He looked at me and he goes, no. He goes, you fish wherever you want. You're leading the tournament. I'll leave. That's what he said to me. He goes, if you want this point, I'll leave. And even if I wanted that point, because he did that, I would still say no. Right? That's the unwritten rules. And Chen is getting experienced enough to know that. And I appreciate that. And that will go a long way with me. You know, so real quick, I'm going to put my glasses on for this because I know we are going to talk about this. To elaborate a little bit, I wrote some notes down because I think
like you. Look at James coming prepared.
I really think this is important that we're covering this.
Me too.
You know, like we talked about, don't creep up on a guy. If you're fishing 200 yards from a guy and you see him on a point and he's catching fish, don't sneakily roll up on him and edge your way in 100 yards, 50 yards, 30 yards. We all know what you're doing. And here's the dead giveaway on that. You're fishing and you look up at the guy and you look down and you look up. When people constantly watch me fish to see if I'm catching fish, that drives me nuts. You're not going to catch a damn fish if you're looking at me. Pay attention to what you're doing. Don't roll up on somebody if they catch a fish. Second one is, if you're going to jump in front of somebody, like Alex said, communicate with them and ask them, hey, are you working down this stretch? Is it okay if I go in front of you? Because here's a scenario. I can't remember where I was. Anyway, so many tournaments, it all blends together. I literally had what we call a stretch. And what a stretch is of some sort of bottom contour that has prime cover structure or some sort of something that holds fish. And I found fish that are reloading in that area. So if I go down this way, I might stop here. So yes, ask me. You can go literally right in front of me, but please keep working your way down that way. Now, like you said, roll in behind me. If you roll in behind me, I will verbally say to you, hey man, can you back off? I'm working back and forth, or I'm letting that part of the stretch rest so those fish can come in there. Not that I own the whole stretch of Trinidad and it's literally a 50 or 100 yard stretch. You got 27 miles of shoreline. I want 50 yards that I found my stuff on. Can I please have it? We'll talk about it. And if you say no, then we'll figure out a way to work it out. We're not going to get in an argument. We're two grown men figuring it out. But just because someone's working down a bank doesn't give you the right to sneak behind them or in front of them. Communicate as to how that is going to go. That is number one. Leader, we covered the leader with the AOI. I think we pretty much got it all. Sorry for the notes.
Eric's,
I really
Eric's got
feel
a great one. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm going to look at these. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just saw Eric's comment come in. I've had people roll in as they're measuring a fish. Now that we've got motors allowed in Colorado, this guy always gets first right or refusal.
But you weigh half as much in the water, so we're even.
Yeah. That was good.
So
Good.
Let's talk about that though. So people rolling in when you're measuring a fish. So I'm just kind of writing like the nose. Don't move in if someone just caught a fish, and especially on like a tournament where like people are sucking. A guy catches a fish and then boom, now you've got a little buddy with you. Something happened there. At least have the courtesy to talk about it. Don't just roll in on someone.
I'll say this too, because this happened to me. This happened to me personally. I was at Trinidad. I got blown off. I caught a fish. I got blown off that spot because there was howling wind. And I was measuring the fish, and by the time I finished measuring the fish, I was like far away. I don't think the person that rolled in there after me, because somebody rolled in after me and stayed there the rest of the day, I don't think they ever saw me. I don't know for sure. I don't think they did. And I didn't know what to do in that scenario. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. You know, I was like, do I say something? Do I try to, push up on them a little bit? I kind of pushed up on them a little bit more than I probably should have. I should have communicated. I didn't that day. That's on me, because I honestly don't know if they saw me or didn't see me catch that fish. But I got blown off. I was measuring the fish, and it happens to all of us, right?
Yeah.
Now some of us have spot luck, so it'll never happen again to me. I have spot luck, but Yeah, it's just one of those things. I guess it's always communication, right? And that was communication on my part that day. I believe that was my fault for not going back saying, hey, you know, I was here. I don't even know I'd approach it, honestly. Even today, I don't know how to approach it. I think I would still just do the same thing I did last time, because they don't know. I could just say I was there, and they're like, well, I didn't see you here. You know,
So,
But
I got a
go
question
ahead.
that's hard, even for me, who is an experienced angler from all parts of the boat world, the kayaks, whatever. You know, we all have what's called a milk run. If you're not familiar with that terminology, what happens in practice is you find 3 or 4 areas that hold fish and you rotate around those spots. And when you go to spot A in the morning and you catch your fish off of it, you leave and you try to go to spot B. I'm hoping that no one goes on spot A because I want my fish to reload. I can go to spot B, catch my fish. I can rotate to spot C, and then I can go back to A again. The problem with having small lakes and giant fields, meaning large amount of anglers, is if I leave spot A to go to spot B, I want to go back to A, there's somebody sitting on it, right? So that scenario changes the results of the tournament. If I really was on something big, I potentially could have won this tournament, but I can't be the best I can be because there's so many people on a small body of water. I just got to pick a point and sit here because I can't rotate nothing else. How do you really handle that? I'm not privileged enough to think that I'm better than somebody that I can go, hey, that's part of my milk run. You get out of there. But it sucks because in my heart, I know
right.
I could be a lot better in the finish, in the standings, but I can't because
Right. So I'll say this, because that's a tough one. We've all run into it.
Yeah.
I know the last podcast Matt had with the winners from it was
Derek.
Horsetooth, right? With Eric. Eric was talking about what happened to him at the All American in Truman, right? And I wish I just listened to it the day after I couldn't be on that podcast, but I wish I could have talked to him personally because I kind of wanted to get his take on this because he talked about leaving an area. He found a sweet little spot and leaving it and trying to come back to it, and how the next day there were people there that weren't there the day before. And this is where 2-day tournaments is kind of a thing, right? I know for me personally, when I fish 2-day tournaments, one day I might be in one area, but the next day I might go to my secondary area because I beat that one up too much. I might go to the other one, and I have no idea Eric was there the day before and doing well. I mean, I don't know, right? I'm just going to the area that I caught him at. It happens to be the same area he was at. Same thing with you, James, talking about your A, B, and C milk runs, where I might have the same milk runs or one of the same milk runs, and I go hit it after you go, but then you come back and see me. You're like, dude, what the hell? Why is he in that spot? Again, I could have found them the same way you found them, just hit it at a different time or whatever. That's where the challenging part comes, is when Eric rolls back up there and he sees somebody there that wasn't there before. And the same thing in the glitter boat world, right? With the pros, it happens to them all the time too. Or you weren't here, and they get in arguments over, where I was, and I don't know where you were. You don't know what the truth is or isn't, right? It's a tough scenario, and I don't know what the right thing is or isn't with
that's
that.
the
Same way
hardest
you're
one.
saying, it's so difficult.
That's the hardest one. When you've got
again, it's communication, right? If you go back and see somebody there and your milk run, I just think you just go communicate. You say, hey, I'm at Horsetooth. You fishing that point, so everybody's fishing the points. Hey, can I fish the backside of this point? Is that okay? Just talk, and just by talking, most people are going to be like, sure. I was the heavier than the guy. So to me, it's communication, right? It's just 100% communication.
It is. And here's one way we alleviated it. At the end of the year, every year, CKB has an open forum meeting, and we meet at some restaurant, and I put things on the table that we went over this year, that we did this year. What are the changes that we can do? How can we make the next year better? And when we went to our meeting in October last year of 2023, I proposed that we go back to Trinidad because it's a great fishery. When you time it right, it's perfect. It is a small fishery. And when you guys get, not you guys particularly, but any guys get 40 people on a body of water that small, that situation where you can't be the best you can be because you just got to pick a spot and go and just sit there and hopefully you win because you can't rotate on nothing else because it's so full with so many people. That is the reason the members brought up that, hey, let's limit the amount of anglers at Trinidad. And I didn't bring that up. That was brought to me as an open forum and a suggestion during our meeting. So therefore we tabled it, we put it to vote, we raised our hands, and majority of the people showed up at that meeting wanted to limit our event at Trinidad this year to 25. And that's what we've done. So the first 25 that come into Trinidad for CKB are the ones that are in it. We do have a waiting list in case someone backs out, and which, Alex, we've talked about it, and we'll talk more about it. But we feel it gives the anglers the best ability to be the best they can be. Does it suck that we limited it? Yeah. It sucks that we're limiting payouts and not everybody's getting an opportunity. But I'll tell you what, I think that tournament sold out in less than 3 or 4 hours. So I don't know if it's a good thing. We're going to try it. I'm going to get feedback at the end of the year. I want all your guys' feedback. Was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? I don't know, but we're going to try it. But those are some of the things. The way to handle some of that is possibly limit the amount of people on a smaller body of water.
If I win, it was a great thing. All right. We have a great comment in here. I love that idea for some of these bodies of water. I think this is a kind of a unique thing that Colorado has to deal with too, with the fisheries that we have here. So Eric Ali, I'm going to post this up. Alex, I brought this up to you while we were camping together. This comment here. We need to have a top 10 championship. All the water, not all the anglers, earn it. Colorado Classic. I brought this up literally last weekend.
Agree.
I think this is a great idea. I don't know if this is a CKFC, CKB thing. And hey, we're also limited with how many weekends that we actually have to fish.
Yep.
So that's part of the problem. But I do think that's a beautiful idea
to
be able to go out there and say, hey, the end of the season, we're going to look at the AOI standings. We're going to pull the top 10 in, and we're going to do a championship on whatever lake that's hitting, you know. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah, my other idea too, we're going somewhere way off topic here, I guess, but is a 2-day event. I mean, earn it. 2-day, because all the national events are 2-day events. There's a thing to it. Managing fish is a whole different animal. Doing it 2 days in a row is, you want to talk about skill, and you can luck into 5 fish. Anybody can luck into 5 fish.
Yep.
You really could.
Yep.
Right? But getting 10 fish, the right 10 fish is a whole different game, you know.
We're doing that at Norton. We're doing that at Norton this year. It's a 2-day event. It's a Saturday and a half a day Sunday, so we can get guys back on the road and get home safely for Sunday so they can get to work. So if you're interested in a 2-day event, a day and a half, managing fish, making sure you're doing like you said, Alex, it's giving people the practice they need to go to national events.
Yeah, managing fish is a whole nother animal. It's something I'm still learning. I'm still learning that game because it's a whole nother animal. It really is.
I beat fish up at Truman that I ran into that problem. I only got 4 the second day, and it's just part of the learning process of what I need to do. But I love that we're trying to progress people to become better, not only in Colorado, but that we can send them somewhere and that they're competitive. I think that's absolutely huge. A couple more comments. Top 20 for both clubs from Gene. Colorado Classic sounds badass. Still trying to see James as an inmate. Okay.
Hey, I got to represent New York, huh? Come on.
Mean mugging his mama earlier.
So I know Jason and me have been talking a little bit about just creating a one-off tournament to do exactly what they're kind of talking about right there. Is taking the top of both clubs and just doing a one-off tournament. It could be in October, it could be November, whenever, you know, it could be March, April, early April, whatever. And just have, it could be for fun. It could be you all throw $20 in, you know, not a sanctioned tournament or anything like that. Just friends having a good time and see who's the best that day, you know, and why not?
So I've gotten approached by board members and other people saying, hey, would CKB and CKFC ever host an event back to back at the same lake? Right here.
You and I talked about that.
Not a problem with it, really. Here's the only problem I do see with it from a national standpoint, from BASS. When you want to fish with us and you register on turn, I need you to pay your club dues, your nation dues. It is expensive to start to fish with us. So if you were to ever do something like that, my suggestion is to do it because we have insurance reasons too. Like
Yep.
if we do this at Chatfield, we do a combo CKFC, CKB at Chatfield, I have to pull a permit that day and get my insurance from BASS National Headquarters. You guys have to get insurance. The best way around that is put it under one club, whether it's all through me.
I got you.
But the problem with that is, once again, it's expensive.
Yeah.
The $65 for
So our way of doing
CKFC
it-
should host it.
Our way of doing it was an unofficial tournament. It was just friends going to go fish. It's not for anything. We're not fishing for not even money. It doesn't have to be money. It's just the top however many people. Let's go have a good tournament, a fun tournament, see who's the best. Again, you're not going to win anything out of it. You're not qualifying for anything. It was just going to be a one-off deal that we were talking about doing.
The Colorado TOC.
Yeah, just something, just a fun one-off event.
As a board member of the CKFC, one of my favorite sayings is that sounds like a wonderful idea for the next board.
Next board.
Exactly.
There it is.
I'll leave it there. No,
That's the same.
we
Yep.
had a great question actually by Chen Char. Any plans to do an MLF style tourney for the Bass Series? Again, a wonderful idea for the next board.
Hey,
tackle.
you're doing it
We
for
are
the
doing it.
multi-species.
We are doing it for the charity event that we're doing this summer out at Spinning 11 Mile is MLF style. So it absolutely could happen. We could alternate years between Bass and multi for the charity event. I think that's a great idea. Gene's got to bow out. Yep. I'm going to do the same here pretty soon. Great cast tonight. MC Hammer, great job, James and Alex. Thank you for the show. Hats off. And Eric Ali's over there fishing boat. Okay, cool. I just want to highlight one person that I really like, because we talked about the day 2 thing before we kind of close it out. I've got and this is all on you. You spend a lot of money. You go to tournaments. I'm not even talking about in Colorado. Let's say you go to fish a national event and you're out of it on day 1. You're not even in it on day 2. I've been camped out at Lake Fork when they have the record number century belts being produced of the Elite Series with Corey Doyle. That dude will not even get on that body of water because he doesn't want to screw anything up for those anglers. He's the same type of guy that if he gets a bad first day, he's not going to push day 2. And if you see somebody come up that you probably ask him, hey, how are you doing? Are you doing in the standings? He's going to want to know, because he's not going to fish that water if someone has a chance at it. I just say there's a lot of, and I don't mean this in like chauvinistic way, but gentlemen's rules. There's a lot of gentlemen's rules out there that you got to conduct yourself with a code that's where you want to be, and communication, like you said. I think we hammered that communication. When in doubt, talk it out. And just go up to each other. There are small bodies of water that we have to fish here. Instead of assuming that someone did something, or assuming that you were right or they were wrong or the opposite, just have a conversation when you come up on each other. Hey, I see you're fishing this. Do you mind if I do this? And whatever. I think that's the biggest piece of advice is communication. I also want to talk just before we close out and do sponsor shout outs. You mentioned having like Chase Patchett in the tournaments, and these younger people that are in the trails right now. I will say there's a lot of talk right now in the elites that these younger guys aren't earning their way. They're just fishing live scope. In my opinion, and I'll voice it here, the reason these guys are doing so well is because they are 1,000% dedicated to this from a much earlier age than we were able to 10, 15, 20 years ago. I don't think that Bill Dance had YouTube where he could just see someone slamming him on a jerkbait a week before on the same lake that he was going to fish. There's a lot of that's involved. I don't want to get too crazy into it, but please guys, if I don't want to see that make its way into Colorado to our clubs. There's a lot of young anglers here that are way better sticks because they put the time in and not because they're young. Josh Gardner, fantastic angler. That guy's got unlimited potential. I could see him doing not only just kayak championships for the national stuff, but I could see him going and doing the bass boat thing if he wants to. I think a lot of these guys kind of get some shade because, oh, you know, it's an easy button to argue saying, oh, they've got live scope or whatever, but don't, you know, these are kids also, you know, let's raise them right. Let's teach them the mistakes that they make. Let's help them learn from that. If they have a rule violation, let's show them what they did. Don't just hammer them, and let's just make them better, because it's going to make our sport better in the long run.
So real quick to that point with like Trey McKinney and all those young kids, JT Tompkins and everybody, and I don't want to say I know this firsthand, but I know a lot of guys at the national level in the bass boat world still, because that's where I came from Bassmaster Central Opens when I fished those. I know a lot of the big name guys, and I've talked to some of them. Here's the situation, what happened to give, and I'm not throwing shade on those kids at all. They are great anglers. Here's the rule. Once again, a gray area with the rules. When those guys, those young kids fish the EQs, which if you're not familiar with what the EQs are a 9 tournament format that you get points and the top 10 or 9 qualify for the elites. Okay. So those kids knew going into the 7th event of the EQs last year that they were going to make the elites based on points. Even if they didn't catch another fish, a lot of them did, or they were going to make it. Okay. The Elite Series schedule was already put out. Okay. Which means it's off limit to qualified elite anglers. Well, these kids were still EQ qualifiers. They weren't, quote, elite anglers yet. So they went out, and I don't want to say that. This is talk. This is not me assuming. There was talk of those kids hiring guides and getting out on the Elite Series schedule and fishing stuff when it was off limits to the rest of the elites because they weren't the elites yet. So BASS, and once again, me being a tournament director with BASS, I hear the chatter, and I know the big guys up there. They are going to be looking into changing those rules next year, that if you are in potential qualification for the elites, that schedule is off limits for any of the new guys coming into it. So they can't get on a lake when nobody else can. So once again, not throwing shade, just opening up people's eyes out there that, hey, they did not do nothing wrong. They are not the elites yet. So they went and fished the elites up and coming schedule, which is off limits to the rest of the elites, but not them. So it was a gray area in the rules that they took advantage of. So not saying they don't deserve to be there at all. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is a learning experience like Alex had to go through, that you, Matt, being on a board, that me being on a board. These are the things that we need to see that's going to make us better tournament directors, to make a better series and an even playing field for everybody that fishes at any level.
Yep, absolutely. And we're always evolving, right? We're going to have to make new rules. We're going to have to change. We're going to have to be adaptable. 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, Matt Flanagan here. Any idea for tournaments is good with me. Pueblo Winter Series. Yeah, Winter Rough Riders. I created a chat for that. The people that were dedicated enough to go in December. Some of the best fishing I had on Pueblo was in December last year. And Matt Flanagan is a rough rider for the Winter Series. Eric, Colorado 6, young and older, talented. I 100% agree. Yeah. Get my ass kicked by some youngins all the time. We need to treat the youngsters how Paul and Jason treat each other. That's right. All the love.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
Maybe not. You know, maybe you're. Maybe it's not your thing. Jason, top 10 from each club. Okay, Jason's way behind. I think Jason's
Your love is never a bad thing.
So let me ask something real quick. What's your guys' thoughts, Alex, Matt, board members, and Alex been around it for a long time. This permit process that we deal with as tournament directors to pull a permit to be allowed to hold a tournament at a lake in Colorado or anywheres. I'm going to be frank here. I'm really getting fed up with that requirement. What are they, meaning the Colorado Parks, Larimer County, what are they providing for us other than making us create a lot of paperwork and spend a lot of money that could go to other causes to have a quote permit so 25 guys can go out on a lake and hold a quote event, right? What is the purpose of a permit? Why in Colorado, if you're not going to provide a service and give us a dedicated area to do live weigh-ins, to set up our tents, to create parking spots, cone off an area so we can park, if you're not going to do nothing for us, why do we have to pull permits? Is it legal in Colorado? Once again, I'm not trying to stir the pot because I have to follow the rules because like Alex said, we have to have an example. But a lot of other states don't have to pull permits. What is the purpose of this permit stuff?
So
why do we do
insurance? Is part of it for sure. Insurance is definitely part of it. They want to make sure you have an insured event.
I was talking to somebody today
I don't
about
know.
this, and this is kind of just a different thing, but it relates to what you're talking about. So, yeah, I mean, you're not. It's different. You know, at the end of the year, in the past, we've gone to Chatfield. We rent out a spot to have a barbecue. You know, clearly we're paying for that spot, just like a campsite or something like that. We're taking over that piece of land that's not public to the rest of the water. And I'm not speaking for the board, and if I get kicked off of it for this, again, board memberships are open. But a good example of this is, you know, at the Classic for the All-American, there's a Moyak tournament. There is obviously the Classic. There's Moyak. Nebraska had a tournament. I think Arkansas or Iowa had a tournament. All these people had tournaments on top of the tournament that was the one that was the main event that was being hosted there. And I don't know what the process is out of state, but clearly it wasn't that difficult for all these other states to be able to create a tournament out there. I don't know what the process is. I don't want to throw shade at CPW. I don't know what their budget is and what they're allotted to be able to do. There's comments, you know, on the page about, you know, some of the posts they make. I agree. I don't think the solution is making a comment about CPW saying, oh, they don't want this. An example of that today, CPW, I saw that they had a kayak safety video. The kayak was inflatable that someone would probably die on if they were on it. They were using a life jacket that was probably the cheapest thing that you could have. And
they didn't talk about 360 lights, whistles, none of that stuff.
It was a three-step solution of, you know, wear your life jacket, have fun, and check the weather.
That was it.
You know what? I instead of commenting on it, because it's easy to go that route and to kind of to shade them, and I reached out to him and I said, hey, we have the ability to educate people. We have people and the platforms to do it. There's people that are content creators, you know, throughout the club that could produce quality content for CPW. They'd probably do it free of charge, just to say, hey, this is me on a kayak. This is what I use to go out safely. This is how I check the weather. These are some conditions that I look for. You know, our clubs have higher safety requirements than the video that they produced. You have to have a whistle, for example, and different things like that. And we'll call tournaments off based off weather. I understand, especially with as many people are dying on the water in inflatable vessels or just kayaks or whatever. I understand that CPW has to do something. It felt like lip service to me to watch a video where it's just, hey, this is a three-step solution. Check the weather. What weather? What do you want me to check? You want me to check for hail, for wind, for thunderstorms, for lightning? I think it goes a lot deeper than that, and I think that we can offer a solution. I know it's easy to troll them in the comments. I hope that we can have the relationships built up in the future that we can actually solve some of these deaths that are going on. Go ahead.
I dropped the ball a little bit. So I had the safety, I forgot what they call him, safety coordinator for CPW or whatever it was. I was trying to get a meeting with them. That's who they got me in touch with. And we were trying to coordinate a date. It was me, him, Jeremy, and Josh. And I couldn't get all 4 of us on the same schedule for a month and a half, 2 months, and I kind of let that drop, and that's on me. So I had to get that meeting going again because, yeah, we're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about different things about just trying to get kayak fishing guys, or just kayaks in general, um, and represent us. Have somebody represent us. Be it me, be it a bunch of us, or whatever it is, right?
Right.
Just to represent us and to have a say with CPW a little bit to say, hey, give us a voice too, more than just the boats and everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So I dropped the ball on that, let it slide. I need to get that back going. I have his contact. We were going back and forth for a while, like 2 months, and then I just couldn't coordinate it. Maybe I just got to make it happen. Whoever can make it, make it. Whoever can't.
Yeah.
And make that happen, because I think it's important to get those talks going, especially the safety aspect.
Yeah. To
And
go back
it
to
might be
hard.
unpopular. It might be very unpopular, what I'm about to say, and people might hate me. But one of the things I'm going to push for, and this is truth, and I don't care if people hate me for it or not. I don't care. If it saves one life, it's worth it. I don't care how much hate I get. I think it should be mandatory that you wear a PFD, period, end of story, when you're on a kayak, or a SUP. Period, end of story.
Yep.
PFD. I don't care if it's 100 degrees outside. I don't care. I don't care. You have to be wearing it, because too many people die with the PFD underneath their seat or in their hatch someplace, and they're dead because they didn't have it on and they couldn't put it on fast enough. Or they hit their head when it's 100 degrees out, they fall off, hit their head on a rock or something, or get some type of epilepsy or something crazy, and they die because they didn't have PFD on and they couldn't get to it. So I don't care how much hate I get for it. I'm going to be an advocate for that. It is what it is.
No, you shouldn't get any hate for that. That's doing a good thing and making it responsible for everybody. I mean, when I was practicing for Horsetooth, I had a lady go out on an SUP with no vest, not even laying on the deck of the SUP. And she came in and I kind of gave her an earful, and my wife's like, she's pulling on me, like, leave her alone. I'm like, I'm not yelling at the lady, but I'm like, you do know that water's 47 degrees. And if you fall in, you've got matter of minutes to get out of that water before hypothermia. She's like, oh, well, I can take cold water all the time. And I do the polar plunge. And I'm like, I don't care what you are. You're a human being. You get one cramp in your leg and you can't tread water. You're going down.
Exactly.
You're going down. And then when you get to shore, if you're not on the shore where your car is and you're across the way, do you have a change of clothes to get out of before hypothermia sets in? Because it's only 38 degrees outside or 45 degrees outside, right? I think you're doing the right thing, Alex. I would love to see that. I think it should happen. I agree with you.
Yeah. Agree with both of you guys. Back to the heart of your question, Joey. I have no idea. I'm leaving this state probably next year, and but my goal is that I can come back here and have a good time and fish, and that the waters are still what they are. They're managed well. I think they manage fisheries well here. I want to give them credit there. Like we were talking about, Pueblo's on its way up. They're managing that fishery well. I do think on the tournament aspect, we need to figure out what we're paying for sometimes. That might be
that's the part that bugs me the most, is you're taking our money and not providing a service. On any given day, on a Saturday or a Sunday, no tournament was held at Pueblo, let's say, or not. What do you honestly think, between bass boat kayakers that are out on the water in a vessel? What do you think? There's 100 guys out there fishing on any given weekend on a Saturday or Sunday at Pueblo?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So if there's 100 guys out there fishing, what's the difference if there's 50 guys out there fishing in a kayak? What if we met at the local gas station at the Walmart down at the corner of McCulloch and 50, and we all threw in $50? We all run to the lake and we go have our tournament. At the end of the day, we leave their facility because they're not providing a service for us. We leave their facility. We meet back at Walmart. We go over the results and we hand out our money. Right. I know their complaint is you're using our parks and you're creating your kayak club is making a profit and we're not getting a percentage of it. Yes. Right. So, okay. So that's fair. So what if it's 100% payback? We don't make any money. We carry a zero balance at CKB. So you're going to take 7% of our money. That's what they're trying to do for a permit. And you're going to provide no service when there's still 100 guys out there fishing for fun anyways. I don't get it. It drives me crazy. I don't even know if it's legal for them to collect money for a state park, because we pay our entry fees to get in there. we're giving them the money they need. You're not providing a service. I just don't know. And I don't want to open up the can of worms. And it just frustrates me that we have to go through this. I swear, and you know it, Alex, I start the process for permits in October of this year, and I will get my finalization around March for some of these events. I go 4 or 5 months of playing games of returning paperwork and insurance, answering questions. Give us this, give us that.
We had one,
it's still
James,
never good enough.
We had one that went 2 weeks before the tournament when I got final approval. That was Larimer County.
Yeah. The frustrating thing.
I was stressed.
Frustrating thing for me, kind of as an angler in these events, obviously as tournament directors, board members, you want to have the best. You want people to walk away from your tournament thinking that you ran a hell of a tournament and a hell of an event for them, that even if they didn't do well, they'll come back and fish it because of the professionalism that you presented. And when you spend all of this time and money to pay these parks to kind of play ball with you for this event, and the ANS inspectors are 15 minutes late to even inspect for you, now that doesn't just put the bruise on the CPW inspector that's not there. That reflects on the lake, that reflects on the tournament director. And I'm not saying it should, but especially someone that's fishing a first tournament, if they only have 6 or 7 hours to fish during that tournament and 15 minutes of that is gone, it's going to be noticed, Yep. So, because it congests the boat ramps, and you've got boaters that are trying to get on at the same time. I get the complaints. Eric's in here. So offer tournament exclusivity for the day, at least something tangible. Yeah, I mean,
100% agree. And how many times are they back to back held a tournament on a body of water when there's another tournament going on? Yep. Right. So that sucks. Like CKFC's out there on a Saturday trying to do a multi. You got a bass tournament taking them off the beds. So the guys on the bass tournament on Sunday are getting their fish jacked that they just worked so hard for because they did a back-to-back event on the thing. And here's another thing. You, as a tournament director, it's our job to understand that and to put a good schedule together. But we also have to realize that May has Mother's Day and May has Memorial Day. So that leaves 2 weekends in May. The best fishing in the state of Colorado, it leaves 2 weekends.
And Alex's birthday.
There you go. That's even more important. But what I'm saying is, you can't have, CKB can't next year make a tournament in the only 2 weekends left in May and give Mother's Day weekend and Memorial. There's only 4 weekends in that time, and I'm going to take up 2 of them and leave CKFC with nothing, or leave somebody else. So I understand why they piggyback, because there's only so much time. So
it's tough. It's all tough.
It is. It's tough. We have to balance it. And like you said earlier in the beginning of this podcast, Alex, we have to set an example. There's so many times on Facebook when I want to say, New York Jimmy wants to come out, and I want to call somebody out and say something so bad, like, are you a total moron for saying that? But I can't, because of the position I hold at CKB, or the person who I am in our community representing a club. So it's just professionalism. You have to bite your tongue a lot of the times. And it sucks because I don't bite my tongue very well.
So, like I said, I'll be leaving in a year, so I can make all those comments for you once I get out of here. Happy to, buddy.
Hey, Matt, it's 2.5 hours, bro.
Yeah, let's get going here.
Cow. I got to get back to my cell.
Yeah, Jay's gotta go.
Dude, the warden's going to come after me.
You missed chow already.
Damn. Now I get bread in the morning.
Ken, what's up, buddy?
Hey, real quick, just real quick, Matt, I just want to say a huge shout out to you. I always say this every time I'm on this podcast, is thank you for what you do, man. Yeah. People have no idea what the board members do and what you do specifically, Matt. You're on it. This podcast was a phenomenal idea. Thank you for everything you do, man.
Just drinking an Eddie line and talking to you guys.
And to James and CKB, everything you guys do, man, it's so appreciated. It really is. I've told you firsthand.
Yep.
You, your wife, Arledge, and Matt Flanagan. I mean, the 4 of you guys, because your wife doesn't get credit either, but she should. She's there for every event. She sets up tables, breaks down tables. She's there for every single thing. She supports you like I've never believed anybody supports somebody like that, but she does.
No, it's awesome.
She's amazing. So huge shout out to her too. But yeah, thank you to all four of you guys because
No, thank
I
you
mean
for
Matt
that.
too. Matt's a part of that too, right?
Flanagan's huge.
Both Matt.
Yeah.
Sorry, both Matts, right?
Yes.
Flanagan and Arledge, right?
Yes.
So appreciate you guys. I really do, man.
No,
And to our board,
thank
of
you.
course. I say our board, CKFC's board. I mean, of course, we always appreciate everything they do and the time and commitment you guys all put in as volunteers.
Right.
I can't stress that enough, right? As volunteers, right? So thank you.
Yep.
Anybody
And thank you for your time.
Yeah. Anybody that's coming in to the CKFC, hey, there's 2 clubs in Colorado. They're on this show right now. So if you're coming into the CKFC for next year, there's going to be a lot of decisions being made by the new board. Have that open dialogue with James and the Matts early, and like we were just talking about, communication is so important. That communication between the clubs, and that's just going to make a better season for both of us. Last thing before we get out, I do like to open it up. Anybody that makes kayak fishing easier on you guys, sponsors or whatever it be it, go ahead and shout it out. Before we do that, the next couple events we have for CKFC, June 8th is at Horsetooth. June 22nd is at Spinney. Horsetooth is a bass. Spinney is multi. And then CKB, the 1st and 2nd of June, separate tournaments are at Red Willow. So, go ahead, guys. Alex, first.
So me, Native, this side, whatever. Native, my kayak out there. Huge shout out to Native for supporting me and everything they do. My wife, my family, of course, right? I want to put a shout out to Matt. He sponsors me. He Matt Collins goes with me everywhere we go. We're becoming the new Jason and Paul. If you were to stay here longer, I'd be whispering in Matt's ear. Unfortunately, I'd probably be the little spoon. He'd be the big spoon. Unfortunately, just the reality, right?
That's right. That's right.
No, seriously, that's it. Yeah.
As far as me, I'd like to give a shout out, like you said, Alex, to my wife for the support that she gives and helps and hears me talk about fishing all the time when I should be talking about works most of the time. I'd like to thank Waterline Sports, Jim, Adam, and Cole out there for everything they do for me, and Hobie keeping me on the water and making me and allowing me to be the best I can be and not worry that if something goes wrong that I'm not going to get the care that I need. So thank you to Jim, Adam, Cole, and Hobie for everything that they do for me. So it's really appreciated.
Awesome. Yep. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I know this was a longer one. We could talk for days, I'm sure. Love kayak fishing, but yeah. And Leslie says we love Sharon. Yeah, we all love Sharon.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is she really writing a book?
Sharon or Leslie?
Sharon. She said she was going to remember the inspector. She's going to put her in her book.
Yeah, she's contemplating the idea. She's been talking about it for a while. She has a very exciting childhood. She hates me to talk about it, but I'm going to throw it out there because all you guys can now talk to her about this. And I'm going to get in trouble for this. He goes, yeah, thanks. We're going to end the podcast with this. Sharon has 16 brothers and sisters.
Holy crap.
So there's 17 children in her family. She had a heck of an exciting time growing up. She could definitely write a book. I grew up as an only child. So me going to her family's house was like total polar opposites. Like my Thanksgiving was a half a turkey and 1 jar of cranberry sauce. Hers is 7 turkeys, a pot of lasagna, a giant table going out with 65 people. It was like nothing you've ever seen. So she could definitely write a book for sure. And it would be an exciting one for sure.
That's awesome. That's cool. I got to thank Stormy. She's over here on the floor just waiting for me to come to bed. She snuck in the.
Hey, Stormy, I'm Little Spoon, not you.
Yeah, I got the headphones on, so she can't hear
that. Headphones on?
Oh. Alex says he's Little Spoon, so he's going to fight.
Not her.
You don't wrap this up
soon. Did you guys hear that?
Something about wrapping it up. That's what I heard.
She said you will be if you don't wrap this up. So, all right. The boss has
All right.
spoken.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
guys.
Thank you for
Thanks-
having me, guys.
thanks-
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, both you guys. Thanks for everybody for tuning in, and have a good one. We will talk to you on the next one. Later, guys.
See ya.